What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. Capture the Spirit King Palace. 1 KP. Chapter 1 Trapped in Jail at the beginning. Open black lens bracket brain storage close black lens bracket. Anyone who has some brains will receive a time travel ticket. At the same time, Rukia, Rangaku, Nemu, Hanaji, Senjumaru, Orihime, Yoruichi, Naru, Heiji, Bambi, Gigi, choose one and take it away. The deputy captain of the 11th Division of the Gotei 13 Tojoki Ayaya. He massacred the Rukongai, violated the Soul Society nobles, and seriously endangered the peace of the three realms. We are hereby sentenced. In a dark rotunda, serious sounds came from all around. A young black-haired Shinigami was tightly bound, his devouring eyes hidden under his loose black hair, and he let out a disdainful laugh. Do you think you are worthy of passing judgment on me? As soon as these words came out, the big shots around the curtain instantly became angry. He is a treasonous person. Do you really think that just because you are the deputy captain of the Gotei 13, you can be exempted from punishment, death penalty? You must die. Not only that, we also need to use double death to frighten those who are disrespectful to our nobles. Behind curtain number 1, a gloomy and aging voice sounded, the Tsunayashiro family, now the head of the nobility in the Soul Society. The Tsunayashiro family is responsible for managing the Soul Book Corridor and knows all the history and information of the Soul Society. It is said that they have a bloodline very similar to the king, and have an inseparable relationship with the Soul King and the 46 chambers. The old man behind curtain number 1 is Tsunayashiro Toki, the current head of the Tsunayashiro family. He said sadly, there is no need for more trials. Let's prepare to kill both of them tomorrow and prepare for the execution. Then he paused and spoke slowly, baring his teeth like an ugly lion. Majesty, if you kneel down and kowtow to me 100 times now, maybe I will forgive you a little and let you live longer. Quote. The Tsunayashiro family can be called the culprit of all evils in the Soul Society. In the later period, whether it was Tosen Kanami, Ginjo Kugo's blackening, or even Eisen and Yawacha's attack on the Soul Society, the initial reason was Tsunade. The heinous crime committed by the Yayoi family. And Tsunayashiro Toki's proposal just now was by no means a sudden outburst of goodwill, but he liked to see someone kneel at his feet, and then was ruthlessly rejected by himself and then got the feeling of torture and tearing others to pieces. As soon as Tsunayashiro Toki said these words, the entire trial seemed to explode. It can't just be like this. At least 10,000 heads will give him one more hour to live. This man is unruly and rebellious, so it's easier for him to deal with it this way. There are also some words of praise and flattery. Tsunayashiro-sama is really kind. I agree to forgive all these offenses. Your presence is truly a blessing to the Soul Society and the three realms. Looking at the farce happening in front of her, Toshiro Ayaya just sneered, then closed her eyes and recalled the scene that happened a few days ago. That's right, Tojo Ayaya is a time traveler. As for what your name was in the past, it has been in Soul Society for nearly 100 years. Come on, this is no longer important. When he first traveled through time, he thought he would be like other time travelers, with the system turned on and the cheat in place, then pushed all the way, and finally lived a happy life with a lot of harems. But, no, it was only in an accident that he was rescued by the captain of the 11th Squadron at the time, Karya Shiki, and was recommended by him to study at the Mao Spiritual Arts Academy. In the end, he obtained and successfully liberated his Zanpakuto. Advertisement. In order to repay Karyashiki's kindness, he joined the 11th Division right after graduation. After several years of fighting, he became the youngest vice captain in the history of the 11th Division. Until some time ago. It was originally just a routine trip to deal with a few Jillians, but I didn't expect that I would encounter an incident where several nobles openly robbed civilian girls in Rukongai. When Toshiro Ayaya saw the injustice on the road, he took action directly and quickly settled the matter. Unexpectedly, the subdued noble directly provoked Toshiro Ayaya. In the face of provocation, Daochung naturally did not waste any words, and quickly raised and lowered his sword to kill the noble man who led the provocation. However, this nobleman also has another identity, Tsunayashiro. Ever since Daochung knew the identity of this noble, he originally thought about the aristocratic circle in the Soul Society taking action against him, but he didn't expect it would come so unexpectedly and so quickly. The corruption of Soul Society has far exceeded his imagination. The Gotei 13, a killer group that originally held the name of the Gotei thousands of years ago, has been transformed into minions protecting the interests of the Soul Society's nobles after the leader Yamamoto's edge faded. Don't watch the anime. Everything in Shinigami seems to be quite interesting, but in fact, the cruelty here is no less cruel than anywhere else. There is an insurmountable gap between ordinary people and nobles. In front of room 46, his vice captain is no different from an ordinary Shinigami. At best, he is just an ordinary vice captain who has not yet learned Bankai. He can do whatever he wants. After the Tsunayashiro family knew what Tojo had done, they were embarrassed to argue in front of them in order to maintain the face of the nobles, but they had planned everything secretly. They first massacred ordinary souls in several districts of Rukongai, and then sent people to pretend that it was Ayaya Tojo, and then ordered the Gotei 13 team to hand them over to their 46th chamber for trial. From then on, Tojo life and death are completely in their hands. Do you think there is no evidence? For evidence, they can easily create more than 10 of them. And what was revealed in Toshiro Ayaya's eyes was endless murderous intent, as well as hatred for her own weakness. After Tojoki Ayaya's recollection, Tsunayashiro Toki said, "How about it? Kowtow. If you kowtow 100 more times, I might be able to let you live a few more days." Toshiro Ayaya said coldly, "Just you. I just didn't expect everything in the Soul Society to be so dark. Maybe, I should have killed you 46 chambers before." As soon as Toshiro Ayaya said these words, Tsunayashiro Toki felt as if he had been slapped in the face in public. The smile on his face immediately froze, and the surrounding nobles sitting in the 46th room also stood up and stood up. "You kid, you are insulting room 46 one after another. It seems you are tired of living. Immediately, I want to see his soul evaporated completely. There is no need to prepare for double death. Lord Tsunayashiro, please quickly order the killing of this person who disrespects Soul Society." Tsunayashiro clapped his hands heavily, pointed at Toshiro and said angrily, "This man has evil intentions, despises authority, and has committed many crimes such as the torture of Rukongai's soul. Letting him continue to live is a great disrespect to Soul Society." Quote. Tsunayashiro looked at the Shinigami attendants in the 46th room and shouted, "Why are you still standing there? Why don't you take this heinous person into custody quickly? Go and break the seal of the twins. Execute this evil person quickly. Person." When Shinigami of the 46th room on the side escorted him to the execution ground, Tachi couldn't help but feel miserable. His Zanpakuto had already been confiscated. He was surrounded by special troops who had their own exclusive use of the 46th room. There was also Yamamoto outside. The Gotei 13 at the head stood in line, and he had nowhere to escape. Just when Toshiro Ayaya was resigned to his fate, he suddenly heard a voice in his ears. "Congratulations host, the system has awakened." Chapter 2. A belated glimmer of hope. System. Toshiro Ayaya can no longer remember the last time she longed for the system. From the ambition when she first came to Soul Society 100 years ago, to the disappointment in the future that this standard equipment for time travelers has not arrived. What is supposed to come has finally come. Although it is not too early, it is never too late. Daocheng thought in his heart. Poof. Toshiro Ayaya was roughly pushed by the 46th room guard behind him, but he did not have time to delve into this matter. After all, there was not much time left. He had to study this system as soon as possible. This is related to his life and death. Open black lens bracket bite. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to the host god level sign in system that has been successfully bound. Binding is successful, you can receive rewards by completing the sign in within a specific time every year. Close black lens bracket. Excuse me, host, I have received a gift package for newcomers. Do you want to open it? Close black lens bracket. This situation did not allow Yano Tojo to think too much. All kinds of emotions, including surprise, anger, and surprise, were intertwined in his mind. Turn it on quickly. Toshiro Ayaya quickly responded to the system in her mind. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting the negation experience card one time. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting a captain level spiritual pressure pack. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting the full Kidō Grandmaster. Daocheng quickly read in his mind the rewards from the novice gift pack. Negation experience card. It can be turned on at any time to use the light beam to save the same kind of people. The inside and outside of the light belong to mutually isolated worlds. Once the target is surrounded by the negation light, it is equivalent to being in another space. This is an experience card, limited to one use. A captain level spiritual pressure package. After use, your spiritual pressure can be increased by one level of an ordinary captain's. Full Kidō Grandmaster card. After use, all Kidō techniques of the Grandmaster will be used: Hado, Bakudo, Kaido. Toshiro Ayaya looked at the rewards he had received, and his nervous expression could not help but relax. Looking at the negation experience card lying in his system space, he knew that no matter what, his life would not be lost this time. At the time of Tsunayashiro and the other nobles of the 46 houses, they were also surrounded by guards, following Toshiro Ayaya all the way. At this time, they all couldn't wait to see what Toshiro Ayaya looked like before his death, and how his soul was completely evaporated by the double death. Only in this way can they feel a little better in their hearts, and can they rediscover the sense of superiority of the nobility. Tsunayashiro thought about the tragic scene of Ayaya Toyoro before his death, and the corners of his mouth rose, which was harder to suppress than act. Shuangshu no Oka soon arrived. There are two total captains of the Gotei 13, Yamamoto and Kyoraku. Unlike Kyoraku, Captain Yamamoto came from the era of killing thousands of years ago. Because he came from the era of disorder, after establishing the system, more stubborn than anyone else. What he fears is nothing more than another collapse of order. Although Captain Yamamoto's persistence was a bit stubborn, it was undeniable that it brought peace to Soul Society for thousands of years. But if we talk about the truly authoritative representatives of Soul Society, there is one topic that cannot be avoided: double death. Advertisement. Double execution is used to execute people who have committed crimes in Soul Society. This is an order that has lasted for thousands of years in Soul Society. However, in the original work, the arrival of the protagonist Kurosaki Ichigo broke this rule. With the arrival of Ichigo, the twins were destroyed with the help of Kyori and Jashiro. The destruction of the twins meant that the peace of Soul Society was destroyed, followed by Eisen's rebellion. In the later period, the final goal of Akira Yhwach was directly to destroy the three realms. He was more ruthless than Eisen and Ichigo, and even the two Death Hill was completely destroyed by him. The establishment of Shuangxia means the establishment of order, and the destruction of Shuangxia means that the corrupt rules of Soul Society are broken. Toshiro Ayaya looked at Shuangxu Hill quietly, waiting for the liberation of Shuangxu. The setting of Shuangxu is said to be equivalent to 1,000,000 Zanpakuto, but in reality it is not that exaggerated. The so-called Zanpakuto is only equivalent to a Zanpakuto that has not yet been liberated, that is, 1,000,000 Zanpakuto, strength. With the liberation of the twins, the captains of the Gotei 13 also noticed this situation. A shunko from Kariashiki Kenpachi came over and said, "Touchy. You." He also noticed the execution team in the 46th room, and then the liberation of Shuangxu and the escorted Daocheng. He had already vaguely felt this terrible ending. Toshiro Ayaya still respects this mentor who saved her life and led her to the path of Shinigami. Toshiro said helplessly, "I never thought that the laws of Soul Society would be so corrupted. Degree. Watch your words, kid." Tsunayashiro Toki on the side glared at Toshiro fiercely. "If you, a heinous person like you, want to say a final farewell to your captain, kowtow to me 100 times again. I might be able to relax a little. Old ghost, you just want to live longer, right?" Daocheng said disdainfully. "Evil brat, you asked for it." Captain Yamamoto also arrived at this moment. He also squinted his eyes and had no objection to the judgment made by Room 46. Rather than protecting a vice captain, he values protecting the order of Soul Society more. Tsunayashiro was originally under the protection of the guards of Room 46, but when he saw the captain and his party, he was completely calm. Under the nose of the strongest combat force in the Soul Society, an ordinary deputy captain couldn't make any sparks. Tsunayashiro said to Captain Yamamoto, "Captain, this person despises the king's laws of Soul Society, is rebellious by nature, and wants to kill us. In addition to the previous massacre of Rukongai's soul, in order to maintain the peace of Soul Society, we have made a quick verdict and immediately launched the double death penalty." Here, Tsunayashiro Toki deliberately said that protecting the nobility of Soul Society was to protect the peace of Soul Society, so that the Gotei 13 team could not refute, and it would convince them more, and make the process of killing the Sword City smoother. Hearing this, Kariashiki couldn't help but retorted, "Captain, Tsunayashiro-sama, the deputy captain of Tojo is my subordinate. I know his situation best. There is no way he could do such a thing. Yes, there must be something hidden in this." After hearing this, Tsunayashiro Toki said angrily, "Captain Kariashiki. Watch your words. Are you raising objections to the authority of Room 46? The commander-in-chief did not reply. At this moment, he took a deep look at Daocheng and said, "Don't say any more, Kaya." "But, Captain," Tsunayashiro said coldly, "the captain has agreed. Captain Kariashiki, if you plead like this again, I seriously suspect that you have a deep collusion with such a traitor. It will inevitably be detrimental to you at this time." The man wearing a bamboo hat and colorful clothes looked at the captain thoughtfully, and then smiled bitterly. A man with white hair wearing captain's haori also shook his head and looked at Daocheng with a look of unbearability. Daocheng looked around, and most of the other captains also had expressionless faces. No one knew what they were thinking in their minds. Chapter 3: The Trump Card for Defection, Negation. Hiraku Shunsui. Ever since Tojo Ayaya was announced by Chamber 46 to massacre Soul Society souls, he felt that there was too much fishiness in this matter. Although he was not very familiar with Daocheng, he was the deputy captain of the 11th Division after all, so it was inevitable that he would have to say hello. But from ordinary contact, he also clearly felt that Tojo Ayaya was not a murderous guy, and based on his feelings, he would not do anything like massacre Rukongai. On the contrary, Room 46 has always been suspicious, everything happened too fast. Just after Rukongai was massacred, the deputy captain of Daocheng was quickly escorted and handed over to them for trial. Moreover, as a member of a high-class noble family, Kyoryu also knew about the corruption at the top in private. Hiraku Shunsui asked, Mr. Yama and Tsunayashiro, do you really want to do this? We still don't understand the trial process at all, so we can liberate both parties at will. Are you sure? His tone was still toneless. It seemed that Jinraku still didn't intend to directly provoke Room 46 at the moment. But Kyoraku Shunsui's words directly pierced Tsunayashiro's nerves. He roared. You still need to ask. Isn't the trial of Room 46 right in front of you? It is already a fact that this traitor openly massacred Rukongai. How can we not kill the sinner who is despising the laws of the Soul Society and destroying the peace of the three realms again? Finally, Tsunayashiro pretended to be righteous and said, don't use the double execution. Captain Kyoband, how do you want us to explain to Rukongai's innocent soul? At this time, Captain Yamamoto slowly opened his eyes and said, the deputy captain of the 11th Squadron, Ayatojo, seriously destroyed the peace of Soul Society and flouted the laws of Soul Society. He is guilty of the death penalty. We have no objection. Yamamoto still chose to compromise. He knew that once the order was destroyed and he broke with the top leaders of Soul Society, things would become much more difficult in the future. After all, as the captain, he only needs to fight hard to kill the enemy, while the 46th room in the rear has many things to consider. Captain Yamamoto said this without hesitation, he is so old after all. Hearing that the captain had no objections to the judgment of Room 46, Tsunayashiro's expression improved slightly. After all, the massacre of Rukongai was done by the high-ranking nobles of Soul Society in order to frame Tojo Ayaya. If the Gotei 13 were determined and investigated on their own, they would naturally be able to see what was wrong. But the captain actually had nothing to say, which was a great help to them. Then Tsunayashiro turned his head and looked at Toshiro fiercely. How could a mere untouchable who started out as a Rukongai dare to go against Soul Society's top brass, room 46? He must personally see Ayaya Tojo's soul being killed by both hands. Evaporated completely. Seeing the captain's acquiescence in everything, Tojoki Ayaya's last hope for Soul Society disappeared, and at the same time his feelings for Team 13 were wiped out. It seems that from now on, there will be no end to the fight. After seeing the captain's statement, the captains of other divisions still looked calm. The captain of the second division, Shiffingen, had an expressionless face. He is also one of the 5 nobles in the Soul Society. It is reasonable to protect the decision of the 46th chamber with Tsunayashiro. Hana, the captain of the 4th division, is still smiling, but based on her identity as first-generation Kenpachi, she doesn't know what is behind this smile. The captain of the 12th division, Hikafuna Kiryu, did not come out. It seemed that she was still studying her so-called, putting a temporary soul into the body, technique behind closed doors. Hieraku Shunsui, the captain of the 8th division, also showed a helpless look after advising the captain that it was unfavorable. In addition, Jashiro originally wanted to plead with Captain Yamamoto and Tsunayoshi Toki, but seeing Yamamoto's softness and Tsunayoshi Toki's attitude of eager to kill Tokyo, he was speechless even when he wanted to speak. The escort also escorted Tojoki Ayaya to continue walking, and soon arrived at the 2-Death Hill. Captain Yamamoto and the Gotei 13 were watching everything. TCH. I should have done it earlier. I was only here to study the system. Toshiro Ayaya looked at the captains around and suddenly thought, Tatsuki was also upset that he didn't seize the opportunity to kill Tsunayashiro today, so he patronized research the system. There are also captains all around, so killing him is troublesome. It's better to wait until you counterattack in the future before taking action. As a criminal, what are you talking about? The escorting officer from room 46 reprimanded Toshiro Ayaya. Daochung said disdainfully. I'm laughing at you. After graduating from the Junyang Spiritual Arts Academy, I neither chose to purify the void to maintain the stability of the 3 realms, nor stayed to pass on the fire to the next generation. Instead, I chose to become the leader of the 46th chamber. Dog, this is so sad. What a treacherous person. He actually slandered Shinigami who dedicated himself to Soul Society like this. Advertisement. Tsunayashiro's shouting voice came again. It seems that it is too easy for you to kill both of you. Toshiro Ayaya said. It is indeed too cheap for you, it will actually delay your life for several years. It is really my dereliction of duty not to take your life immediately. Suna, Ren, quote. Captain Yamamoto said dissatisfiedly. Watch your attitude. Kid, you are contemptuous of the majesty of the Soul Society royal family. Toshiro sighed and said, it seems that Captain Yamamoto, you who basically represent the thousands of years of Soul Society history also choose to surrender to this pitiful piece of flesh. Rebellious person. Do you know what you are talking about? Tsunayashiro Toki was shocked. As a member of the Tsunayashiro family, he naturally knew the history that was hidden among ordinary Shinigami today. That represents the deepest darkness of Soul Society itself. Once revealed, it means the veil of the 5 nobles in Soul Society has been torn off. The entire Soul Society will face a major earthquake. Captain Yamamoto, I propose to execute him immediately. We cannot give this evil man any time to continue talking. Before Captain Yamamoto could react, Tsunayashiro quickly assigned people to start taking action. Toshiro Ayaya lowered her voice and said with a chill, do you really want to see me die? Tsunayashiro time. Does this history make you so scared? Whoosh. When Tsunayashiro heard what Toyoro Ayaya said, he couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. This vice captain might really kill him in the future. At this time, the arrangement had been completed, and the twins had been liberated. Tsunayashiro announced. Do it. HMPH. A sneer came from Toshiro Ayaya's lips. Tsunayashiro Toki said angrily. You dying, rebellious brat, what are you laughing at? I'm so sorry. The time has come and I have to leave. Question mark. Captain Yamamoto first noticed something was wrong in the space, and his face became solemn. Buzz. Yamamoto Genryusai looked up at the sky. There was a spatial distortion above the jingling temple, and a crack appeared out of thin air. The captains also noticed the abnormality of the situation and raised their heads to look at the sky. A hole was torn out of the blue sky, and a dozen Daxu suddenly rushed out face down. At this time, a yellow beam of light shone on Ayaya Tojo, and the body of Shinigami, who was originally escorting Tojo, was instantly cut in half under the yellow light beam. Half of the body is inside the light column, and half of the body is outside the light column. When Shinigami on the other side saw Tojo's methods, they thought it was a fight between trapped beasts in Tojo and struggled to the death. They raised their Zanpakuto and rushed over there, but when they touched the beam of light, their swords it comes out from the opposite side of the light pillar. The person is clearly right in front of me, but yet he is so far away. Inaccessible to humans and out of reach of swords. On the ground, a large pit was sucked out of thin air, and Daochung stepped on the sucked out boulder and slowly floated up. No. This is negation. The captain of Saifengyuan has already figured out what this weird yellow light beam is. He never imagined that negation would come to Knife City at this time. Chapter 4 Eisen's famous scene will be screened in advance. Negation is the beam used by Daxu to save his kind. The inside and outside of the light are worlds isolated from each other. Once the target is surrounded by this light, it is equivalent to being in another space. People outside negation cannot reach it. It is a very powerful defensive technique. In the original drama, this trick allowed the three of Eisen to retreat safely after being surrounded by the Gotei 13. Even Yamamoto Genryusai, known as the strongest Shinigami in 1,000 years, could only watch Eisen leave. When he saw that Tsunayashiro was about to announce his execution, Tojo had already pulled out the negation experience card from the system, and then successfully used it directly at the last moment. Of course, Eisen and his entourage were safe and sound at that time, and so is Tojo Ayaya now. All the captains who were in charge of watching the show couldn't calm down. This scene was too outrageous for them. Negation itself is Daxu's ultimate means of saving his kind, and it is unbelievable that it would actually come to the City of Swords at this moment. They all thought the vice captain of the Gotei 13 was secretly colluding with Hueco Mundo. Captain Yamamoto had an angry look on his face, and he would forget what Tojoki Ayaya said before. After all, he was plotted by the high-ranking nobles of Soul Society, and it was still within the scope of Yamamoto's compromise. But negation descended on Toshiro, and Shinigami colluded with Daxu, which directly touched Yamamoto's reverse scale. Damn, how could negation appear on his head? Originally, Tsunayashiro was full of pride. He was eager to see Tojo's death more than anyone else present, but the sudden change directly made his face, which was originally like a dead person, even more ugly, and his whole face looked like it was going to explode. As one of the top 5 nobles in the Soul Society of the Tsunayashiro family, of course he knew what the beam of yellow light just now was, and he also knew very well that he could not do anything to the Sword City now. He directly chose to vent his anger on Captain Yamamoto. Tsunayashiro said angrily, "Captain Yamamoto, how did you lead the Gotei 13 team? The vice captain of your team was actually able to collude with Daxu. This, but for the capital crime of treason, you, the captain, are also responsible. How are you going to explain it to room 46? Captain Yamamoto snorted coldly and glanced at Tsunayoshi Toki. Just this glance made Tsunayo Toki break into a cold sweat. He swallowed and remained silent. Sir Tsunayashiro, I will naturally give an explanation to room 46 afterwards. Then, Captain Yamamoto stared at Toshiro Ayaya with deep eyes, and said in a cold voice with murderous intent, Kid. As a Shinigami, you colluded with Hueco Mundo. This is the way to become all Shinigami in Soul Society. Enemy. And as the deputy captain of the Gotei 13, the crime is even worse. Advertisement. Toshiro Ayaya replied. You have to kill me according to the rules of Soul Society, why are you antagonizing me? The only thing I'm disappointed about is that I didn't take it off earlier. Tsunayashiro time, your life. Tsunayashiro Toki had just recovered from the pressure of the captain when he heard Toshiro Ayaya's words and immediately roared to the sky. Kid. What are you talking about? You are wrapped up in negation and you are just like a lost dog, fleeing. We've just arrived in Hueco Mundo, and you still want to kill the supreme noble in Soul Society. Toshiro Ayaya also wants to talk about his identity as a time traveler. Although 100 years have passed since he time traveled, he himself does not have much affection for the Soul Society. He became a Shinigami and joined the Gotei 13 as the deputy captain, that is, Toyagiri. Repay the favor. Currently, the 46th chamber wants to kill him, and Yamamoto remains silent in order to maintain the order of Soul Society. Of course, he will resist in Toshiro. High in the sky, Toshiro Ayaya said expressionlessly to the people below, Captain Yamamoto and Tsunayashiro Toki. Don't use your hypocritical justice to convict me, and don't try to use the so-called order to determine my fate. Every person has a specific destiny line in his hand, and as long as I hold the sword, the so-called destiny is entirely in my own hands. Even God cannot control me. Yamamoto Genryusai heard what Toyoro Ayaya said and frowned. Kid. You are too arrogant and don't know what to say. At this time, Jashiro stepped forward like a script, and asked Daochung, you are reduced to joining forces with Daxu, have you fallen? Daochung. Jashiro, you Soul Society are too arrogant. No one can dominate me. Moreover, no one stands in the sky from the beginning, not you, not me, not even God. Toshiro Ayaya broke free from her restraints and put her right hand on her forehead. Only then did Toshiro realize that she didn't arrange hairspray on her hand in advance. Also, does this count as plagiarizing Aizen's famous scene in advance? Daochung simply put his right hand on his forehead and said coldly, from now on, I will stand in the sky. At this moment, the City of Swords had just risen to the highest altitude. Standing in the palm of Jillian's hand, he said, when I see Soul Society again, I wonder what the scene will be like. Tsunayashiro Toki was so angry that he almost gritted his teeth. He couldn't understand why Daxu would help Toyoro escape, and he had just sentenced Toyoro Ayaya to death, and he was here in the Gotei 13. He retreated safely in full view of everyone in the team, which was simply more uncomfortable than slapping him. Obliterating the Sword City in his heart has become a top priority. After all, although the combat power of a vice captain is not top-notch, it still makes him unable to sleep and eat well if he doesn't remove it. Daxu's palm slowly lifted up the Sword City, and then the gap in the space was slowly closed. At this time, the sky in Soul Society was still blue, as before, as if nothing had happened. Chapter 5 Follow-up Meeting. Officially entering Hueco Mundo. There was another buzz sound, and the void that had just been torn apart by Daxu completely closed. After seeing Tojo Ayaya completely disappearing, Tsunayashiro Toki was also clearly angry. Tsunayashiro Toki said to Yamamoto, Sir Yamamoto, it is the job of your Gotei 13th team to combat rebellion, don't forget it. Captain Yamamoto picked up his crutch and pounded it on the ground, and said in a deep voice, "This is natural. I said I would give room 46 an answer." Captain Yamamoto then announced, "Immediately notify all the current captains of the 13th team and come to the hall for a captain's meeting. No one is allowed to be absent." After a while, in the meeting hall, the captain stood at the front and center, followed by 12 captains standing on both sides. All the captains had serious expressions, even the one who had always been out of tune looked solemn at this moment. Yamamoto Genryusai was the first to say, "Everyone has witnessed the scene that just happened today." The deputy captain of the 11th Division of the Gotei 13, Tojo Ayaya, was dissatisfied with the royal family's decision and attempted to break the order that Soul Society has maintained for thousands of years. Join forces with Shu and use negation to defect from Hueco Mundo. Captain Yamamoto continued, "Room 46 has just issued new instructions. It is strictly forbidden to leak this matter. This will also avoid causing panic in the Soul Society. At the same time, this matter is related to the majesty of our Gotei team." As a Shinigami and as the deputy captain of the 11th Division, he disobeyed the judgment of the 46th Chamber and even had an affair with Hueco Mundo. This behavior is regarded as a taboo in the Soul Society and is treasonous. This person seriously threatens the three realms. It is our duty to protect the safety of the Soul Society and maintain the stability and order of the Soul Society. According to the instructions of the 46th Chamber, the number and frequency of the Hueco Mundo expedition will be increased. See you next time. This person must be killed to show the courage of our Imperial Guards. Furthermore, this traitor's talent is obvious to everyone. He only entered Junyang Spiritual Arts Academy for a few years and graduated early. In the following year, he directly became the deputy captain of the 11th Division. His talent is not inferior to anyone else, so he simply the Zanpakuto has been confiscated in advance, but don't underestimate the enemy. As for Hueco Mundo, we in the Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force cannot go deep into it. After all, it is the territory of the Daxu. There are many Daxu of the Vastad level among them. Ordinary captains are not their opponents, so regarding the Sword City Ayaya's pursuit will probably be difficult, but our dignity of the Gotei cannot be violated. For the first time in 1,000 years, Captain Yamamoto spoke in a tone with obvious murderous intent. His stern eyes scanned every captain. The captain of the 11th Squadron, Karyashiki, wanted to say a few words, but Yamamoto shot him back with a cold look. Yamamoto said, "Kaya, I know that you have a good relationship with that traitor. But we are the Gotei 13, and we will never allow any cover-up behavior. No matter who harms the peace of Soul Society, no matter who he is, be it my brother, my disciple, or even my child, I will choose to kill him." Karyashiki lowered his head helplessly and said, "I understand, Captain." Yamamoto finally said, "As long as I stay in Soul Society for a day, it will be Soul Society's best defense. The traitor will not be allowed to appear again. You will strengthen your training to be prepared to kill those who rebel in the future." The meeting is dismissed. After Captain Yamamoto finished speaking, he slowly closed his eyes and put away the murderous intention that had been revealed before. Ba, ba, ba. After Daocheng arrived in Hueco Mundo, he was fed a large mouthful of sand by the oncoming strong wind. After arriving in Hueco Mundo, Tojo found that the peace here and the peace of Soul Society were completely two extremes. Hueco Mundo itself is located in the gap between the real world and the Soul Society. It is the regional space where Hueco Mundo and Arrancar live. When they are here, even Shinigami cannot know what is going on. The Hueco Mundo environment is different from Soul Society. There is no city-like area with unique streets and buildings similar to the real world and Soul Society, but a real barren land. All it has is a white desert-like barren ground and dead trees made of quartz everywhere. It is night all day long, and the moon is in the opposite direction to the real world. But there are many advantages of Hueco Mundo, that is, compared to the real world and Soul Society, the concentration of spirit particles in the atmosphere is very high, and sufficient energy can be obtained by just breathing, and whether it is Shinigami, hollow or even hollow, it is regarded as poison. The Quincy's abilities are greatly enhanced. After Daocheng thought for a while, he opened the personal panel in the system. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Zanpakuto. None. Reiatsu. Ordinary captain level. Advertisement. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Kidō. Getting started close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Shunpo. Grandmaster close black lens bracket. Everything else. 1 Captain's Reiatsu pack, all Kidō Grandmaster cards. Note. The levels of mastery are divided into entry, proficiency, Grandmaster, penultimate, ultimate, and legend. Tojo Ayaya thought about it and chose to use the Reiatsu pack and Kidō Grandmaster card directly. The place he is currently in is different from Soul Society. Although Soul Society is decayed, the degree of predatory power of the weak is far less than that of Hueco Mundo. Hueco Mundo can be said to be a real dark forest. The immediate priority was to improve his strength as quickly as possible, so Tojo used the Reiatsu pack and Kidō Grandmaster card without hesitation. After using it, Touchy felt a clear difference in his body's front and back, and his spiritual pressure could be said to have doubled. In addition, Kidō, whom I had half understanding before, suddenly became familiar with it. Kidō under size 80 is not difficult to use at all. Is this the power of the system? It can actually increase my power so much all at once. Daocheng exclaimed in his heart. Daocheng once again opened his personal panel. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Zanpaku. None close black lens bracket. Reiatsu. 12 cars. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Kidō. Grandmaster close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Shunpo. Grandmaster close black lens bracket. Toshiro looked at the data of the 12 Reiatsu tanks and couldn't help but laugh at the system's bad taste in specifying the Reiatsu units. Now the teacher of the 6th tank has completely confirmed the identity of the combat unit. Toshiro Ayaya began to think about the future path in her mind. She couldn't just stay in Hueco Mundo like this. And he is also a systematic person, he can sign in once every year, and what he lacks most is time. This means that he will one day gain extraordinary power, and Tojo currently has 12 cars of spiritual pressure and Grandmaster's full Kidō means. As long as he doesn't run into Vastad, there is no threat in Hueco Mundo. To his emptiness. Soon Daocheng formulated a brand new plan. First, he would continue to hone his skills in Hueco Mundo and then increase his holdings through the system. 100 years later, his strength would be absolutely terrifying. What we have to do then is to unify Hueco Mundo and become the new king of Hueco Mundo. In this way, he can launch a war against Soul Society like Eisen and Yhwach. And this war is not just for the Tsunayashiro Hour or the 46 Chambers, but to completely break the ancient decay of Soul Society. Finally, we must completely attack the Soul King Palace and use the power of the Soul King to bring about complete changes to the entire Shinigami world. Chapter 6 The Daily Life of Daocheng in Hueco Mundo. Hueco Mundo. Under the flying yellow sand in the sky, several ferocious-looking Achukas level Daxu were fighting against Daocheng. Toshiro's steps are very light. Even when he was in Team 13, his Shunpo had reached a certain level. Now with twice the spiritual pressure of the past, he can move with ease. During the break between the siege of Achukas, Tojo suppressed Achukas with only his fists. The Kidō mixed in the white hits even caught these Achukas Daxu off guard. Hado number 4. White Thunder. Under a white lightning, the two Yachukas were completely annihilated. At this time, one of the lobster-headed Daxu walked around and used the sound to instantly arrive behind Daocheng. Virtual Flash. The lobster head condensed a crimson spiritual pressure energy wave and launched an attack in the blind corner of the Sword City. But how could such a method hide from Tojo's spiritual pressure perception? Toshiro Ayaya turned around, concentrated her spiritual pressure, and then waved her hand, and the crimson-red streak just now was instantly dispersed into individual spiritual particles. Whoosh! A Shunpo from Daocheng came to the front of the lobster-headed Akuka's Daxu. Just as the Daxu wanted to resist, it was firmly held down by Daxu's right hand. Then the spiritual pressure was released, blasting the Daxu. Not even a scum is left. Time flies. Although Tojo Ayaya lost her Zanpakuto, with just a pair of fists and Kidō's blessing, she was at home in Hueco Mundo. While fighting Daxu who wants to devour him, he improves his strength, while constantly paying attention to Daxu who can be subdued by him as his subordinate. Hueco Mundo is very large, it can be called boundless. He has to conquer a certain number of powerful Daxu in Sword City. Only with full preparation can he have the confidence to counterattack Soul Society. Having read the original work, he knows how deep the water in the Shinigami world is. The strongest Shinigami Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, who possesses the strongest fire-based Zanpakuto in thousands of years, and the invisible empire lurking in the darkness, will rebel against Soul Society's Eisen in the future. There was even the Zero Squadron and the bottomless Soul King. Just like the subsequent thousand-year bloody battle, it can be said that everything was carried out under the arrangement of the Soul King. Compared with them, Daocheng is still too weak, so he has to collect all available forces in advance to expand his combat power. Of course, improving your own combat power is still the top priority. Sign in for the first year. Obtain full Kidō Grandmaster. Tojo Ayaya became confused at this time. He asked the system. System, haven't I already issued Kidō Grandmaster before? What does it mean to give me another Kidō Grandmaster this time? Can the two things be superimposed? Yes, when two identical items are opened, proficiency will be superimposed. Simple addition can also increase the skill level. Daocheng said. That's it. It seems that we need to hurry up now. Signing in the second year, Shunpo proficiency increased. Advertisement. Signing in the third year, Kidō proficiency increased. Signing in the fourth year, White Hits proficiency increased. Signing in for the 90th year, congratulations to host, for getting the ultimate Kidō. Hearing the voice coming from the system in her mind, Toshiro Ayaya slowly stopped. The ultimate Kidō. Let me see. Then, a force flowed through Tojo Ayaya's body from the inside out. In the past, it was difficult to use Kidō with size 90 or above, but the current Tojo can be used easily. Feeling the change in his own power, Toshiro immediately checked the system's introduction to Ultimate Kidō. After reading it, Toshiro understood that the Ultimate Kidō refers to the Kidō level of Yamamoto and Urahara, which can easily activate Kidō above No. 90. In some cases, it is possible to omit the chanting to activate the high-level Kidō level. But the system has given Toshiro more than this Ultimate Kidō. Together with the previous Kidō proficiency accumulation, Toshiro's current Kidō level can be said to be a quasi-legendary level. The approximate level is that of Hōgyoku Eisen. After 89 years of accumulation, Daocheng has made rapid progress in all aspects. Daocheng said silently in his heart. System, open the personal panel. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Zanpakudo. None. Spiritual pressure. Quasi-extreme. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Penultimate peak close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Kidō. The ultimate peak close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Shunpo. Penultimate close black lens bracket. Looking at his own panel, Daocheng couldn't help but sigh. My current level of development is too uneven. But at the same time, this level is basically unmatched in Hueco Mundo. Unless Jijiba, who was sealed by Hyasu Baikibe of the Zero Squadron, can still have some influence on him, there is no Daxu in the entire Hueco Mundo that can compete with Tojo. Oh, it's time, Tojoki Ayaya murmured to herself. Although my current combat power is not enough to truly challenge Soul Society, I can already go to Hueco Mundo to collect limited combat power. In this way, you can see the collapse of Soul Society's decadent nobles earlier. Chapter 7 The first Daxu to be conquered was actually. While Sword City Ayaya was thinking about the increased combat power, she was located 100 miles away from Sword City. A newly promoted Vastad Daxu whose upper body is wrapped by a shark on the back, but whose lower body has a pair of long legs, and even 2 giant thunders in front of his body. She was slowly walking towards the Daxu assembly area ahead. Her name is Harribel. Hueco Mundo has always been about the weak and the strong, and the weak hollows are devoured by the powerful hollows. This has always been Hueco Mundo's unique law of survival. However, Harribel is different from other Daxu. She always has the idea that she does not want to gain strength and make herself stronger by killing others. With this idea, even if faced with a hollow that attacks her, she will still choose not to go. Devour the opponent. Her belief is that the pursuit of sacrifice must pay the price of sacrifice. In the future, Harribel fights for Eisen and is the third Espada under Eisen. But now, she is just a Vastad seeking companions in Hueco Mundo to explain her belief in sacrifice. Before becoming a hollow, Harribel was just an ordinary girl living in this world. The place where she lives is not peaceful, but full of war. Because her personality doesn't like fighting, she has been bullied by others since she was a child. Whether it is her peers, people older than her, or even people younger than her, they all surpass her in fighting. While this life continued, Harribel also gradually grew up. Her parents saw through her pain, and they slowly enlightened Harribel, opened her heart, and taught her the meaning of companionship, loyalty, and sacrifice. Under the care of her parents, Harribel gradually changed. She accepted her identity. She didn't like fighting, but she could also help those who had the same goals as her, and those people were her companions. As life gradually improved, unexpectedly the war interrupted everything in Harribel. Because an enemy soldier ran into their home, the surrounding soldiers opened fire on their home. They still enjoy massacre and do not understand the true meaning of sacrifice. Her parents also took several bullets and died to protect Harribel. But as the war continued, Harribel's consciousness gradually became confused. Does a world without sacrifice really not exist? At the last second of this world, Harribel asked such a question in her mind. Even she herself didn't expect that, or because of a strong obsession, or for some other reason, her soul came to this desolate Hueco Mundo. And from the beginning, she possessed extremely powerful spiritual pressure. From then on, Harribel began to seek new companions in Hueco Mundo to protect them and further perfect the world without sacrifice in her mind. Is it Vastad? Said a lizard-headed Akukas. What are you afraid of? It's just a newly promoted Vastad. A chicken-headed Akukas next to him said dissatisfiedly. What a joke. Those Yachukas who have been devouring their whole lives are still far away from Vastad. The female Daxu in front of them, who doesn't seem to be killing anything at first glance, has actually become Vastad. This is simply a big surprise for them. What an insult. Siege her. If we eat her, we will definitely move up a ladder. A bull-headed Yachukas shouted. Following the call of the bull-headed Yachukas, great voids all around immediately surged in. Harribel's eyes were full of indifference. The power gained through sacrifice is not correct, but your exploration of sacrifice is far from enough. Advertisement. Quote. Ever since Harribel came to Hueco Mundo, she seems to have been born with the ability to use spiritual pressure to create and control water. She named the 2 moves derived from this ability, Scorching Sea Current, and Broken Waterfall. Harribel's shark gills quickly spurted out a huge water column. As her spiritual pressure exploded, the water column showed a tendency to soar into the sky. Wow, what is this? Water. It's water. Can this Vastad control water? Broken Waterfall. As Harribel slowly said these 2 words, the soaring water column instantly changed its direction and rushed towards those Yachukas at extremely fast speeds. Immediately, a wailing sound erupted in this large gathering place. As the water passed by, the miserable condition of the Achukas left behind came into view, but not many of the Achukas inside died. I won't kill you. If I pursue your sacrifice, I will definitely make my own sacrifice in the future. At this time, Harribel suddenly felt a powerful spiritual pressure coming. Harribel was surprised and said, this kind of spiritual pressure is undoubtedly Shinigami's, but I have never felt such powerful spiritual pressure. Damn Shinigami. Harribel had not seen Shinigami before. During her wandering in Hueco Mundo in pursuit of the true meaning of sacrifice, she had also seen several Shinigami from the Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force sweep away the Great Hollows in Hueco Mundo. Shinigami's behavior of not taking sacrifice seriously and easily seeing killing as an act of purifying the three realms undoubtedly made her feel disgusted in her heart. But this spiritual pressure made Harribel understand that this was definitely not an opponent she could easily deal with. After finishing thinking, with a boom sound, Harribel turned and left in the opposite direction of the spiritual pressure. Harribel's departure made these Yachukas breathe a sigh of relief. Although they all became stronger in order to fight and devour the same void, when they themselves faced devouring, they were still afraid in their hearts. Is this Vastad gone? What is she doing? Not killing us, and leaving so fast. Unless she feels a more terrifying existence. A being more powerful than Vastad. Hey, did you feel the spiritual pressure just now? Ah, that's a Shinigami, and it's scarier than any Shinigami I've encountered before. The lizard-headed Akukas interjected. Well, let's leave quickly. Even Vastad has left, why don't we run away? Originally, the lizard-headed Akukas didn't know the exact strength gap between Hueco Mundo, but he was blocked by one move just now, which undoubtedly filled the Daxu's heart with fear. Let the person who kills you instantly escape. How scary is this person who is about to come? I want to ask, what does the freeing Daxu look like just now? A calm and charming male voice came. Toshiro Ayaya used Shunko and appeared directly, standing on the height of a sand dune in front of these Daxu. While chasing, he suddenly felt that it was necessary to know what the opponent looked like in advance. Toshiro Ayaya looked at these unlucky Akukas who had been beaten violently just now with a smile. Chapter 8 is a Vastad, is there no backhand power? What does the Vastad who appeared here just now look like? Toshiro Ayaya asked the Daxu in the audience, and revealed his spiritual pressure from time to time. After experiencing Harribel's attack, these Yachukas were already extremely weak. Coupled with the oppression of Sword City's powerful spiritual pressure, these Daxu were as silent as a cicada. That is a yellow-haired, shark-like Vastad. Tojo thought about it, and there were very few Daxu in Hueco Mundo at the level of Vastad, not to mention the obvious characteristics of the shark style. Did the spiritual pressure I felt just now turn out to be her? This is a good start. Daocheng turned back to look at the injured Yachukas, and stopped asking any more questions. Feeling Harribel's spiritual pressure just now, he determined the direction in which she left, and directly used Shunko to pursue that area. Sword City didn't think much about those miscellaneous fish Yachukas just now. After all, 10 such Daxu could not get close to him, but this was also an important source of troops for him to counterattack Soul Society in the future. Since Daocheng's strength increased by leaps and bounds, he was surprised to find that he was suddenly not interested in killing characters weaker than himself. At the beginning, Eisen did not take these ordinary captains seriously at all and did not take action against them. The first real draw of the sword was to Captain Yamamoto. At present, Toshiro Ayaya's mentality is also close to Eisen. Damn it, is he actually chasing after me? I obviously don't want to cause any more unnecessary sacrifices. Harribel gritted her teeth as she ran forward. What should we do? It seems that we can't get rid of him at all. We can only deal with him. Harribel's belief has been determined. This sacrifice is the pursuit of others, and it also has its original meaning. Thinking of this, she stopped and burst out a powerful spiritual pressure of Vastad level, and then used the sound to move towards the direction of Tojo Ayaya. At this time, Daocheng also felt that the spiritual pressure in front was no longer suppressed. Instead, it burst out in a direct blowout, then reversed its direction and attacked him at an extremely fast speed. Oh, you actually resisted me. Instead of choosing to escape, did you take the initiative to approach me? Daocheng said silently. But Daocheng's interest arose, and he was eager to know the extent of his power. Harribel also sensed the opponent's fighting intention and accelerated her speed at the same time. Within a few minutes, the two met head-on in a barren wasteland with only a few quartz trees around, full of loneliness and bitterness. Daocheng and Harribel were less than 100 meters apart. At this time, neither party made any move, and they were all observing the other party. Harribel was confused. Shinigami. I have met several Shinigami from the Hueco Mundo expedition before, and they all carried Zanpakuto. Why is there nothing on him? What a strange guy. As the Vastad Daxu, Harribel is also well aware of the Shinigami's fighting style. A Shinigami who has lost his Zanpakuto has nothing to fear. The Zanpakuto is the sword used by Shinigami. Its shape and abilities are modeled after Shinigami's own soul. Shinigami gains power by knowing the name of the Zanpakuto given to him and by having spiritual conversations with it. Born with Shinigami, died with Shinigami, this is the Zanpakuto. The Zanpakuto is the source of Shinigami's power. If the opponent does not have a Zanpakuto, his combat ability will be greatly reduced. Toshiro Ayaya looked at Harribel in front of her, no different from her in the memory chapter. After transforming into Vastad, her figure has broken away from the normal animal form, and then a mask covers the lower half of her face, while the characteristics of a shark remain on the back of her body. Shinigami, you have come to a place that does not belong to you. Harribel slowly approached the City of Swords and said slowly. Advertisement. In the past, I also met Shinigami who got lost after coming to Hueco Mundo, but you are the only Shinigami I have seen who actively seeks sacrifice. I hope your sacrifice will not become meaningless. Harribel carefully examined Tojo Ayaya again. Toshiro Ayaya is dressed in a tattered black death armor, and there is no place for him to hide his Zanpakuto. So, has the Shinigami in front of him definitely lost his Zanpakuto? Or is it Shinigami's bait for her? His is the accomplice hiding aside. Is there a trap here? Daocheng finally spoke at this time. Wastad, don't worry, there are no traps, I am the only one here. Harribel, are you coming to Hueco Mundo alone? Or even if you lose your Zanpakuto? Shinigami, your courage is worthy of admiration, especially in pursuing the realm of sacrifice in this land. Toshiro Ayaya smiled and said, if one person can't walk, then everyone can move forward together. Harribel said, what are you talking about? Toshiro Ayaya still smiled and responded slowly, it seems that you are pursuing something in Hueco Mundo. Isn't it good to join my army and pursue the world you want to achieve together? Quote. So, you want me to be your subordinate? Toshiro Ayaya's Death Overlord costume was floating in the gusts of Hueco Mundo, and suddenly Harribel disappeared in front of his eyes. Then he waved the fin of his right hand and rolled up a powerful current. Boom. This stream of water struck towards Tojo Ayaya with extremely huge force. So, this is your first answer. Daocheng's tone was still so calm. Harribel replied, I have no idea of surrendering to anyone. All I want is a companion who will explore and sacrifice with me. I see, was the wording wrong the first time? Well, it doesn't matter much. Toshiro Ayaya thought silently in her heart. The next moment, Daocheng's figure disappeared instantly and appeared next to Harribel using Shunpo. What? When did he come here? At this moment, Harribel was very shocked. The Shinigami in front of her was so fast that her detection nerves had no time to react. Boom. Harribel quickly used the ring and appeared on a quartz tree in the distance. Just as she waved her fins and prepared for the next attack, Daocheng appeared directly to her right again. Harribel was shocked. Without a doubt, this Shinigami is the fastest I've ever seen. Moreover, he has seen through my reaction, and my attack is meaningless to him. Single-point explosive attacks are useless. You have to use a wide range of continuous moves. Only such indiscriminate attacks can defeat him. At this time, Daocheng, who was beside Harribel, suddenly retreated quickly. Harribel asked in confusion, what? Why should you give up such a good opportunity? Daocheng shrugged and said, nothing, I just read other things from your eyes. What? That's it? You still think you can defeat me? Chapter 9. Let me describe to you, a world without sacrifice. Toshiro Ayaya continued, my retreat is nothing more than to defeat the possibility that you imagined in your heart. Harribel said word by word, destroy my fantasy. Toshiro Ayaya said directly, yes, defeat your so-called illusion of defeating me. Every creature has a sense of self-protection, but whenever something goes unsatisfactory, there will always be in the mind construct another timeline to imagine. In this way, the name given to this frightening thing is reality. Yes, what you fear is the real you. Boom. A yellow spiritual pressure shot into the sky. Then, a large amount of water appeared around Harribel, and a large amount of spiritual pressure was poured into the water. Harribel shouted loudly, scorching sea current. Defeat him for me. The water flowing around her instantly became boiling, and the water contained terrifying high temperatures. Toshiro Ayaya watched Harribel indifferently as she made her move. Searing current. Harribel's unique move in the original work. It is used in the sword returning state. The shield-shaped water vapor flow generated from the front of the sword tip can instantly melt and evaporate the ice created by Toshiro, the captain of the 10th Division. The scorching water column hovering around suddenly expanded in all directions, attacking in all directions at 360 degrees without blind spots. Toshiro Ayaya said, oh, a single point attack can't keep up with my speed, so you choose a large-scale move. Harribel said confidently, if you do this, there will be no place for you to hide. Die, Shinigami who actively seeks sacrifice. When did I say I was going to hide? Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Tojo Ayaya waved her hand casually. Hōdo's 31 red fire cannon. The Kidō released by Tojo is under the influence of ultimate Kidō, combined with the blessing of powerful spiritual pressure. No matter how low the number of Kidō released is, the attack effect of fully chanting Kidō is not inferior to that of a higher number. The red fire cannon collided with the scorching sea current, and a large amount of water vapor burst out. After a while, water vapor filled the surrounding area, blocking the surrounding sight. This Shinigami. Where did he go? The diffuse water vapor obscured Harribel's sight, and at the same time, her detective nerves were unable to locate the traces of Knife City. Hōdo's 78 Zon Huilin. A prototype of Kidō's blade split the water vapor into two halves in an instant, and quickly slashed towards Harribel. Boom. Harribel immediately used the sound to turn away from here. Zon Huilin's remaining power remained unabated, cutting a rocky mountain in the distance into two halves. What kind of monster is this? It only used one move to neutralize the move of Searing Sea. Harribel said breathlessly. At this moment, Toshiro Ayaya's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Didn't I say that? I've already seen through your tricks. Harribel said in disbelief. Can you react to Bastard speed in an instant? Toshiro Ayaya still had a calm smile at this time. When did you have the illusion that I can't respond to your speed? From the beginning, I seem to have shown my power. Boom. Harribel dodged and flew high into the sky. She condensed her spiritual pressure again, and a large amount of water gathered around her again. Daocheng still turned his back to Harribel, not paying attention to Bastard Daxu's ultimate move. Feel the sacrifice well. You should be afraid too. Harribel said loudly to Tojo Ayaya. Advertisement. Broken waterfall. Broken waterfall. In the original work, Harribel's move is extremely powerful. The lines on the sword's body are like shark gills, and a huge water column is ejected from the lines like shark gills to attack the opponent like a waterfall. This move, which was once difficult for Toshiro, was nothing to worry about in Tachi's eyes. Bakudo no. 81 breaking the sky. Toshiro turned his back to Harribel in response to her final move, and used Kidō, the only defensive type in Shinigami that has a clear bonus to back-to-back releases, Duan Kong. After Toshiro said Kidō's name, a giant transparent wall blocked behind Toshiro. With the blessing of huge spiritual pressure, the hollow space formed this time is extremely huge, and it is harder than the hollow space used by Byakuya in the Arrancar chapter when he chanted it completely. The huge stream of spiritual pressure that was supposed to overwhelm Sword City was completely blocked by a huge transparent wall and could not move forward. It could only flow helplessly towards both sides of the wall, washing away things around Sword City, but unable to touch the sword. Every penny of the city. Harribel. Brush. Daocheng used Shunpo and flashed directly behind Harribel. Daocheng gathered spiritual pressure in his hand, put his palm on the back of Harribel's neck, and said, "The first time may be a miracle, but what is the second time?" Harribel felt the powerful spiritual pressure coming from behind. Can't think. Unbeatable. She can't escape no matter what. Could it be that he was about to die in the middle of the exploration without fully understanding the meaning of sacrifice? But at this moment, Harribel felt that the spiritual pressure attack that had been pressed against the back of her neck just now was withdrawn. The corners of Daocheng's lips curved up again, and he said slowly, "Tia Harribel, it seems that today is your lucky day." Harribel said doubtfully, "How do you know my name? Shinigami, and why don't you take the opportunity to kill me?" Daocheng withdrew his strength, turned around, and said with extremely confident power, "You don't need to know this, Tia Harribel, come with me." Harribel, although he was full of doubts, he still chose to follow Toshiro Ayaya. Daocheng walked and said, "If you have the power called sacrifice, the impossible will be infinitely closer to possibility. Arrancar, with its power alone, without the brains to match it, is almost like glass in the air. Although it exists, it will fall to pieces immediately. And you have the heart to explore the meaning of sacrifice. This is undoubtedly indispensable." Harribel asked, "Who are you?" Daocheng did not immediately answer Harribel's question and continued, "If your ideal is not to sacrifice for pregnancy, you must have power. The power you pursue, if this is your ideal, I can give it to you." Quote. Harribel responded with blurred eyes, "My ideal? You want to be more powerful, right? Don't you want to see the true form of your ideal?" Toshiro Ayaya enlightened like a life mentor. Harribel's eyes gradually changed. This change was seen by Daocheng, and the corners of his mouth curved again. Daocheng stretched out his hand to Harribel and said, "Just follow me. I will lead you to your ideal place. I will never let you make unnecessary sacrifices again." Harribel slowly raised her head and looked at Tojo Ayaya. Her eyes had changed into a look of surrender. Toshiro looked at her and said, "My name is Toshiro Ayaya, an insignificant Shinigami, but in the end, let me describe to you a world where there is no needless sacrifice." Chapter 10 Signing in for a century. Arrancarization is on the agenda. Daocheng chuckled at Harribel and said, "I am just an insignificant Shinigami, but Tia Harribel, in the future you will be honored by your decision today." Toshiro Ayaya's words were very gentle and peaceful, but the peace was mixed with indescribable confidence. Harribel felt Toshiro Ayaya's words, like sunshine, dispelling the confusion in her heart. She looked up at Toshiro Ayaya, with a different emotion in her heart. This is the companion she has been pursuing, the person who can guide her to see the true meaning of sacrifice. And she, Tia Harribel, wants to fight loyally for Lord Sword City. In this way, along with Harribel's surrender, a legend spread in Hueco Mundo. It is a story about a Shinigami and a Bastard Daxu traveling together. Daocheng took Harribel back to the daily routine of Hueco Mundo. Now, killing the weak hollow has no benefit to Daocheng. Sword City mainly shifted its goals to planning an attack on Soul Society and the transformation of Hollow into Arrancar. But virtual Arrancarization still starts from scratch. Tachi understands very well that Shinigami or Daxu will encounter their own soul barriers no matter how far they evolve due to their limited souls. It is very necessary to test the Shinigami transformation of Shokyu. At this time, Tojo has already planned a counterattack plan 100 years later. Arrancar is characterized by a hollow mask that is broken, revealing a human face, and carries a sword, shaped like a Zanpakuto, which is sealed by the spiritual core of Arrancar's power and has an indestructible outer skin. Arrancar still carries his original nature and devours souls. After several years of adjustments, Eisen's Arrancarization experiment still did not meet expectations. It was not until he successfully made a semi-finished Hōgyoku using the souls of hundreds of Shinigami and Matsumoto Rangaku Soul King's nails that he was able to experiment with Daishu Arrancar and Shinigami Arrancar. Make great progress. Using Hōgyoku to make Kion take off his mask and realize Arrancar, Eisen used this technique to create countless Arrancars, including the finished high-level Arrancar Espada and the modified Arrancar Wanda Wise. At this time, Daocheng was exploring Arrancarization experiments from scratch, which was naturally a bit more difficult, and Daocheng himself also felt that he was not suitable for soul experiment research. But for Tojoki at this time, what he lacks the most is time, and the experimental materials in Hueco Mundo are the most indispensable. Jillian can be seen everywhere and can replenish the experimental soul for Tojoki at any time. Based on his understanding of the dark history of soul society, Tojo still holds a neutral attitude towards such behaviors as playing with souls. In the preliminary Arrancarization experiment, Daocheng still tried its best to select those Jillians who were not intelligent for Arrancarization research. There are more than 100 extremely hungry hollows devouring each other. Many hollows produce spiritual pressure fusion due to devouring their own kind. Sora have spiritual pressure, but few actually produce spiritual intelligence. Most of them have low intelligence and do not have any abilities. Of course, except for Eisen's 9th Espada's Aronio Aluruli, what Sword City wants is his special ability and use it to the maximum possible extent. There is no doubt that making him a special Zanpakuto is much more meaningful than incorporating him into Espada. On the road between Daocheng and Harribel in Hueco Mundo, they naturally encountered countless Daxu who wanted to devour them. At this time, there was no need for Daocheng to take action. Harribel on the side helped him solve all the battles at this level. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years have passed, and Daocheng feels that the Arrancarization experiment is becoming more and more convenient, and the probability of success is getting higher and higher. At this time, a sound came from the system. In the past 100 years, every time I checked into Sword City, I still didn't miss it. Everything inside added to Sword City's combat power extremely horribly. Signing in for the 190th year, congratulations to host, for getting the semi-finished product Hōgyoku. Advertisement. Daocheng thought silently in his heart and opened the system panel that he had not seen for a long time. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Spiritual pressure. Ultimate. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. Extreme close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Extreme close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Kidō. The ultimate peak close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Shunpo. Extreme close black lens bracket. The most obvious change brought about by this check-in for Tojo is undoubtedly Hōgyoku. The power of Hōgyoku is obvious to all after reading the original work. After Eisen perfectly fused with Hōgyoku, he was directly separated from Shinigami's existence and merged Kyoka Suigetsu with himself. At the finale of the Thousand-Year Blood War, if Eisen hadn't interfered with Yuacha's output through Kyoka Suigetsu and used his immortal body as a human shield, he wouldn't have been able to survive the launch of Ishida Yuryu's Silver Blood Clawed Arrow. Hōgyoku's existence even disturbed the omniscient and omnipotent Yohabak who absorbed the Soul King. His power can be imagined. Then, what is in the hands of Tojo Ayaya now is a half-finished Hōgyoku. Even if he fuses it with this Hōgyoku, it will have no effect at all. However, this piece of Hōgyoku has the most important point for Tojo Castle at this time, and that is Hollow's Arrancarization experiment. During this century, Knife City used Jillian, who lacked intelligence, as a test material, and gradually became familiar with the process of Arrancarization. Now with the support of Hōgyoku, the progress of Arrancarization has been greatly simplified. For example, it's like when you are taking an exam and you are given answers next to them for you to copy. Next, within a few days, Tojo successfully transformed some low-level Jillian-level Daxu into 100% Arrancar through the Arrancarization test conducted on this semi-finished Hōgyoku. Currently, Daocheng is troubled by the fact that there is currently no more powerful Daxu for Daocheng to experiment with. And recently, Sword City has discovered many Akuka's-level Daxu, which seem to be heading in another direction. I don't know why. At this time, Harribel had been following Toshiro Ayaya for a long time, and she seemed to have seen Toshiro Ayaya's troubles. He walked forward and said, Lord Daocheng, I am willing to be the first experimenter of Bastard Daxu. In her words, Harribel showed her absolute loyalty and trust to Ayaya Tojo. Although the Arrancarization test has never been done in Bastard Daxu before, based on Hōgyoku's blessing and his own proficiency in the Arrancarization test, Sword City is still very confident about Arrancar Harribel. Knife City immediately agreed to Harribel's request and carried out Arrancar transformation on Harribel in a cave in Hueco Mundo. Half a day passed quickly, and at this time the Arrancarization test was completely completed. Standing in the cave, Harribel's appearance was completely different from before. She had yellow hair and dark green eyes. She still had two unknown large and conspicuous objects on her body. The upper part of her body was wearing a short white long-sleeved dress, horizontally on the back. He was wearing a Zanpakuto. Seeing that the Harribel in front of him was no different from the one in the original work, Daocheng's lips curled up slightly on the spot. My virtual Arrancarization experiment is completed. Chapter 11 The Terrifying Spiritual Pressure. When Daocheng saw Harribel's Arrancar transformation completed, he knew that the Arrancar plan could be launched. All he needed to counterattack Soul Society now was the accumulation of time. Today Harribel looked at her changes with a shocked face, especially the huge change in her spiritual pressure. This is not just a great leap forward in strength, but a breakthrough in a dimensional category. Lord Daocheng. Daocheng smiled slightly and stopped Harribel from speaking. Now that Harribel has undergone Arrancar transformation, every cell in her body has chosen to be loyal to Tojo Ayaya. In her eyes, Daocheng is not only her boss, but also the light that leads her to the true meaning of sacrifice. Daocheng looked at Harribel in front of him and was very satisfied, and at the same time thought of his system panel. Tojo Ayaya opened her system panel. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Zanpakudo. None. Spiritual pressure. Ultimate. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. Extreme close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Extreme close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Kidō. The ultimate peak close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Shunpo. Extreme close black lens bracket. Extreme spiritual pressure. Daocheng muttered to himself. At this time, he didn't quite understand the extent of this ultimate spiritual pressure, so it seemed necessary to test it. Daocheng closed his eyes and slowly felt his spiritual pressure. The next moment, Daocheng suddenly opened his eyes and raised his spiritual pressure that was as surging as the sea of stars in the universe. That powerful and terrifying spiritual pressure was rotating with Daocheng as the center. With a thought in Daocheng's mind, this pillar of spiritual pressure swept away in all directions. The ultimate spiritual pressure of Sword City transformed into substance, inspiring into terrifying lightning that raged around. The surrounding things were completely destroyed in an instant, and the white sand in Hueco Mundo was filled with spiritual pressure and soared into the sky, flying thousands of meters into the sky. Following Daocheng's thoughts, the spiritual pressure continued to spread towards the periphery. 1 mile, 2 miles, 100 miles, until 1,000 miles. Zai Palace. Baraggan, who was sitting on the throne, also sensed this huge spiritual pressure immediately. This level of spiritual pressure. Who is it? Feeling this spiritual pressure that he could not reach at all, Baraggan had a trace of fear in his mind, as well as the fear of losing the throne of the King of Hueco Mundo. In a quartz forest in Hueco Mundo, a strange-looking Yachukas, with many eyes on his body. After feeling this spiritual pressure, he was ecstatic. This kind of spiritual pressure. So powerful, so full of love, this is the person I have decided to dedicate my life to. In the wilderness far away from Hueco Mundo, a mysterious and lazy middle-aged uncle felt this spiritual pressure and couldn't help but look stern. He had never met anyone with this kind of spiritual pressure in Hueco Mundo. Wait, this feeling of Reiatsu, is it Shinigami? Feeling this, the lone wolf-like Daxu looked at the little girl beside him and asked softly. Let's go and take a look, Lilinette. In Hueco Mundo, Toshiro Ayaya caused a lot of chain reactions. Advertisement. All the Daxu in Hueco Mundo have different thoughts after sensing the spiritual pressure of Toshiro. Some want to surrender to this spiritual pressure, some are overestimating their abilities and want to devour them, and some are jealous. However, this spiritual pressure quickly disappeared after it exploded with force. After a short experiment, Tachi also knew the extent of his spiritual pressure. It's probably similar to Hōgyoku's Reiatsu during the Eisen period, and a bit stronger than Yamamoto Genryusai's Reiatsu during the 1,000 Years of Blood War. After the test was completed, Toshiro Ayaya immediately withdrew this terrifying spiritual pressure and suppressed it to a normal Shinigami state. At this time, Daocheng glanced at Harribel who was kneeling next to him. When Harribel's spiritual pressure erupted in Sword City, she had already received a huge impact. She could no longer maintain a standing posture and knelt down. Although Daocheng deliberately avoided directly impacting Harribel, the vaguely revealed spiritual pressure still suppressed Harribel until her face turned pale. After Sword City withdrew her spiritual pressure, Harribel's eyes became more loyal and she also showed absolute obedience to the strong. Harribel was frightened for a moment. At that time, she was attacking Lord Daocheng. If he had been based on the strength that Lord Daocheng showed at this time, if Daocheng hadn't deliberately held back, he would probably have ceased to exist, right? Shortly after the spiritual pressure erupted in Knife City, on a plain not far away. A bright white moon hangs in the sky. Under the moonlight, yellow sand rolled behind a snake-shaped Daxu and a lion-shaped Daxu. They were being chased by huge spider-shaped Akukas. In Hueco Mundo, where the law of the jungle is absolute, the female Daxu is born with a weaker soul than the male Daxu. TCH, the two female Daxu still refused to admit defeat in the face of this Daxu who was stronger than them. Virtual Flash. The snake-shaped Daxu and the lion-shaped Daxu concentrated their limited spiritual pressure at the same time, and emitted a red flash of light that hit the big shoe on the head. Did it work? The thick smoke cleared, and the spider-shaped virtual head was revealed, unscathed. Spider Daxu laughed and said, "That's it. You have no way to escape." The two female Daxu said weakly, "The weak will become a part of the strong, and the strong will devour the weak and continue walking. This is common sense in Hueco Mundo, but am I going to be absorbed by such an ugly guy?" Quote. "Don't worry about my appearance. Next, I will swallow yourselves together, and then I will absorb you to become a more powerful Yachukas," said the spider-shaped Daxu. At this time, the two female Daxu seemed to accept their fate, closed their eyes, and waited for the spider Daxu to devour themselves. Boom. A stone rolled down from the nearby hill. Spider Daxu seemed to have detected something with his spiritual pressure. He turned around and roared loudly, "Who is that person?" Along with the moonlight, a woman with brown skin, green eyes, and white clothes walked up. Her long golden hair was tied into 3 braids. After seeing it, the spider-shaped Akuka said disdainfully, "What? There are really small enough creatures, and this posture is a Shinigami. Or a human." As long as you disturb my meal, I will kill you first. The brown-skinned woman said nothing, stretched out her left index finger to hook the ring of the knife behind her back, and pulled out the knife. When Spider Yachuka saw her pull out the knife, he roared wildly and rushed over with all 8 legs. The woman simply jumped and slashed, reaching behind the Spider Daxu. And the Spider Daxu had been cut in half under the moonlight. Wow wow wow, Daxu in the spider form roared unwillingly and fell to the ground. When the 2 female Daxu saw all this, their hairs stood on end. After seeing the yellow spiritual pressure emanating from the brown-skinned woman's body, she was even more unbelievable. What's going on with this guy? Is he also a female? But this kind of spiritual pressure that far exceeds Akuka's, could it be Vastod? The mysterious female Daxu put the knife behind her back, turned her back, and said to the 2 Daxu, who were also females. Come with me. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. The mysterious brown-skinned female Vastod seemed to be emotionless and replied again, I told you to come with me. Chapter 12 If one person can't do it, let's do it together. Go backwards for a while. Lord Daocheng, please allow me to retreat first. After the spiritual pressure was recovered in Daocheng, everything returned to the way it was before. Shinigami and Arrancar came to a hidden cave. Hearing Harribel's request, Daocheng smiled slightly. With his perception ability, he naturally knew what Harribel had discovered. It's nothing more than 2 Achukas being chased by hollows who are stronger than them. This kind of mutual devouring between hollows happens every day in Hueco Mundo, and Toshiro doesn't show any concern at all. After all, this is Hueco Mundo's unique natural law. As for what Harribel will do, Daocheng is not worried at all. Tojo Ayaya smiled lowly, nodded, and then continued to close her eyes to rest. Harribel also bowed out of the cave after receiving permission. A few minutes later, on the Hueco Mundo plains, a spider-shaped Huxu that was cut in half suddenly appeared. Stop talking, I'll ask you to come with me, Harribel said to the snake-shaped and lion-shaped Daxu. Under the leadership of Harribel, the 2 Achukas behind them had no choice but to follow Harribel obediently. After all, she was absolutely suppressed by her strength, and they had no choice at all. In the cave, the torches on the side were flashing brightly and dimly. Daocheng looked at the 2 female Yachukas who appeared in front of him, and asked Harribel, who was standing aside in confusion, Tia Harribel, what are you doing? If you can't defeat one person, let's defeat it together. Master Daocheng, you taught me this yourself 100 years ago. So, Tojo Kidō, I just found 2 new partners. At this time, the lion-shaped Daxu said, Partner. Are you saying you want me to be your partner? We were indeed saved by you, but we didn't beg you at the time, let alone be grateful to you. And the man sitting there is Shinigami, right? As a hollow, no matter how you think about it, you can't be Shinigami's companion, right? At this time, Daocheng opened his eyes and said, It's really interesting, Harribel, you can do whatever you want with these 2 hollows. I guess this way, maybe it will bring you a world without sacrifice in advance. Yes, Master Daocheng. Daocheng had no intention of managing this matter and continued to close his eyes to feel his own spiritual pressure. At this time, the snake-shaped Daxu said softly to the lion-shaped Daxu, Stop talking quickly, that's Vastod, and it's Vastod who looks so different, how can he still treat such a thing? A Shinigami obeys your words, you know what that means, right? After thinking about it for a while, the lion-shaped Daxu understood what she was referring to. Such a powerful Vastod would actually surrender to others. Such a Shinigami is definitely more powerful than the so-called King of Hueco Mundo. Thinking back to the terrifying spiritual pressure they had just felt before, the 2 of them instantly realized something. Advertisement. Forget it. Harribel spoke to the 2 Daxu at this moment. I'm sorry, do you have names? What are they called? Sun, Mila Rhodes. At this time, Harribel explained. Our female Daxu are more likely to be the target of others than ordinary Daxu. Rather than acting alone, I still think it is better to act together, so I brought you here. Harribel continued. If you can't understand the so-called companions, you can't touch the true meaning of sacrifice. I still have this idea. So it is necessary to give you a certain amount of strength. Give us power, Sun and Mila Rhodes said in confusion. Yes, our power is given by Master Daocheng. Master Daocheng is the only person who can explain the true meaning of this world, a unique existence. At this time, Toshiro Ayaya had already felt the vast spiritual pressure in her body. She looked at the 2 Daxu in front of her and said, Oh. Do you want new power? It's really interesting, so that I can give it to you in the future. See the new world I built. A few days later, after Toki learned more about Hōgyoku, he immediately Arrancarized Sun and Muraros. First of all, the first one is Sun, after the Arrancarization is completed. She transformed into a girl with dark green long hair with bangs and 3 round teardrops under her right eye. The mask is located on the right side of the head, in the shape of 3 hair accessories. Wearing long sleeves like the original work, the style of clothing is oriental. After Sun passed, it was Mila Rhodes' turn. Muraros' prototype is a lion. After being transformed into Arrancar, she transformed into a tall and burly woman with long black curly hair, and also carried a zanpakuto in the shape of a large sword. Sun and Mila Rhodes said in shock. After the completion of the Arrancar transformation, both Sun and Mila Rhodes felt great changes in themselves from the inside out, and reached a dimensional level improvement from the perspective of their souls. Feeling such changes in their bodies, Sun and Mila Rhodes truly surrendered to Tojo Ayaya in their hearts. They knelt down on one knee and offered their loyalty to Tojo Ayaya. Daocheng was very satisfied when he saw that his Arrancarization methods were becoming more and more sophisticated. Harribel, these 2 new Arrancars will be led by you, and they will be regarded as your subordinate officers. Harribel realized something at this time and asked, Lord Toshiro, do you mean, you want to attack Hueco Mundo? Tojoki Ayaya smiled calmly. Since we want to reframe the concept of this world, let's redefine the limits of Hueco Mundo first. Let me first meet the so-called King of Hueco Mundo. Toshiro still spoke with that confidence, and the confidence he showed seemed to have encompassed the entire Hueco Mundo. And this is indeed the case. Chapter 13 Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force from Soul Society. Capture Tojo. Let's not look at what Toshiro did in Hueco Mundo, and turn our attention back to Soul Society. Not to mention how corrupt and depraved Soul Society is, it is still the Gotei 13 that maintains law and order in Soul Society and the world. But in order to prevent hollows from becoming too powerful, every 100 years or so, the Shinigami of Soul Society will set up a Hueco Mundo expedition force, led by 1 or 2 powerful Shinigami. Their main task is to go deep into Hueco Mundo and control the number of the house, while cleaning up, strengthen supervision to prevent Daxu from invading Soul Society and the real world. However, in the past 100 years, many Shinigami in Soul Society have discovered that the mobilization of the Hueco Mundo expedition has become much more frequent. Even the Tsunayashiro family, which has never cared about the Hueco Mundo expedition, has repeatedly sent its own Shinigami to assist in the Hueco Mundo expedition. Tsunayashiro Toki-sama, the 4th wave of the Hueco Mundo expedition force has returned. They all said, Hueco Mundo is too large to find all kinds of information about Tojo Ayaya. In Tsunayashiro's mansion in Soul Society, a Shinigami knelt on the ground and respectfully made a report to Tsunayashiro. Tsunayashiro Toki's face was gloomy. Ever since the deputy captain of the 11th Squadron, Ayaya Toshiro, defected from Hueco Mundo, out of concern for face or fear, he wanted to get rid of Ayaya Toshiro completely more than anyone else. Tojo Ayaya is like a thorn in his heart. Amagai, do you want to take revenge on Yamamoto Genryusai? Tsunayashiro said sadly, imagine, the despicable Shinigami who killed your father in order to cover up the Tapuraya sword is now standing in front of the Gotei. The top of the 13th team, and you are not even a captain. The Shinigami swallowed, hatred flashing in his eyes. This Shinigami looks quite unkempt, with messy hair and unkempt stubble on his chin. He is tall, has long hair, and is dressed in rags. Tsunayashiro smiled strangely and said, I already know your purpose. Your idea is to get the Tapuraya sword and achieve excellent results after approaching Kasumiyoji's house, and finally become the captain and complete your revenge on Yamamoto Genryusai. But you are just an ordinary Shinigami now, how do you get close to the Kasumiyoji family, which is second only to the 4 nobles? What should you do? Tsunayashiro-sama, what do you mean? Soul Society's Hueco Mundo expeditionary force is a bunch of trash. After searching for almost 100 years, I can't even find the shadow of Tojo Ayaya. I just think that someone needs to be replaced to command this force. Tsunayashiro she said. Tsunayashiro continued to say insidiously, Amagai Suisuk. I know your wish, and I also have my own considerations. You go to Hueco Mundo to capture Tojo Ayaya for me, life or death. In this way, I recommend you to be elected captain of the Gotei 13. Yes, this unkempt Shinigami is Amagai Suisuk in the Shinigami animation. After Eisen defected, he returned from Hueco Mundo to take over the position of Ichimaru Jin, the original captain of the 3rd Division. Because he is in the Hueco Mundo expeditionary force, he has been out on expeditions. Few Shinigami of the Gotei 13 understand him. The real mastermind behind the Kasumi Oji family. In order to avenge his father, he personally took Rurichio to Captain Yamamoto and used the power of the Bankai to seal Yamamoto's Ryujin Jaka. Ichigo arrived in time and started a fierce duel. After learning the truth, Amagai burned himself with a Zanpakuto to apologize. He is a tragic character, all caused by a tragedy caused by misunderstanding his father's words. Advertisement. And now Amagai Susuke's intention to avenge the captain for his father was discovered by Tsunayashiro Toki. Tsunayashiro Toki felt that Amagai Suisuk was a powerful Shinigami worth using. As a bargaining chip for recommending him to get close to the Kasumiyoji family and become the captain of the 13th team, Tsunayashiro Toki wanted him to lead the team to Hueco Mundo to kill Tojo Ayaya. Knight. Tsunayashiro Toki-sama, wasn't the deputy captain of Tojo City executed for crimes 100 years ago? Is he still alive now? Tsunayashiro seemed to be reminded of some bad memories, and said in a more sinister tone, this is room 46's own consideration, you don't need to know. You only need to know that he is in Hueco Mundo now, and your mission is to kill him. Tsunayashiro said sinisterly. You should have learned Bankai, right? And Tojo Ayaya is just a sinful Shinigami who even lost his Zanpakuto. You can't even take him down, right? Tsunayashiro-sama, think about your father. Think about that Tapuraya knife, are you really unable to do it? Amagai Suisuk. Tsunayashiro scolded with an impatient tone. A flash of fierceness flashed in Amagai Susuke's eyes, and he said, I am willing, Tsunayashiro-sama. Although he tends to be quite loyal and law-abiding, he is willing to bend or break the law if it helps him get revenge. Otherwise, why would he, as the captain of the 3rd Division, rebel against Soul Society and try to kill Captain Yamamoto? However, unlike the Tsunayashiro family, Amagai Susuke always has a good side. In the animation, the misunderstanding was finally clarified. Amagai Susuke was ashamed of his behavior and could not bear his own weakness. Amagai Susuke chose to devour himself with his Zanpakuto. Ha ha ha, Tsunayashiro Toki said with a smile, I know that Amagai Susuke will make the right choice for you, so we can start preparing for the 5th Hueco Mundo expedition. Also, let me tell you something. If I haven't gotten the news about Ayaya Tojo this time, Amagai Suisuke, you don't have to come back to Soul Society. This time, Tsunayashiro Toki firmly believed that Tojo Ayaya would die. Hueco Mundo. Master Daochung, do you still miss Soul Society? Sun asked Daochung Ayaya with doubts. Hearing Sun ask this question, Mira Rhodes and Harribel on the side also held their breath and listened to Daochung's answer. Nostalgic. No one will not miss a place where they have lived for hundreds of years. Daochung's tone was still calm. It is precisely because of nostalgia that I long to go back, and going back means change. This is to end the thing that turned the 3 worlds into hell thousands of years ago. Chapter 14 Hueco Mundo Expedition begins. Pumpkin Monster attacks. Soul Society. The Kaikai Gate is an important means of transportation for Shinigami to and from Soul Society. When the World Traveling Gate is opened in the present world, it looks like a classical Japanese partition sliding door, but in Soul Society, the World Traveling Gate is a tall gable-style building with 2 towering square wooden piles in front of the door. Open the gate to the world. As the solemn announcement sounded, 2 huge door panels slowly opened, and a group of Shinigami led by Amagai Susuke slowly walked towards the boundary gate. When Amagai Susuke was about to pass through the boundary gate, he tilted his eyes and saw Tsunayashiro standing beside him. Tsunayashiro Toki was still surrounded by the Shinigami, the bodyguards belonging to the 4 nobles. Even though he was dressed in noble clothes, his eyes were still dark and full of cunning and insidiousness. Amagai Susuke originally did not want to join his sect, but when he thought of avenging his father, he had no choice but to obey. Tsunayashiro used his hand gesture to make a killing move towards Amagaisuke, and Amagaisuke nodded slightly after seeing it. I'm sorry, but for the sake of my father, the vice captain whom I have never met before, Tojoki Ayaya, I can only ask you to die first. Amagai Susuke made up his mind and resolutely led Shinigami behind him into the world traveling gate leading to Hueco Mundo. Soul Society's Hueco Mundo expedition begins again. Bah. After coming out of the boundary gate, it was inevitable that Amagai and the Shinigami would eat a mouthful of sand. Hueco Mundo. It's still the same as before, a dark desert, only the most primitive place of devouring disorder. Amagai Susuke came to Hueco Mundo again, and couldn't help but sigh. Lord Ambe Suisuke, what should we do next? As before, pay attention to controlling the number of hollows. Remember to record the particularly powerful hollows. Ambe Shoju instructed. Yes, also, this time, we must pay special attention to the lone Shinigami. If we find anything, report it immediately regardless of the situation. Receive. After Daochung rebelled against Hueco Mundo, decades have passed since the 5th Hueco Mundo expedition. In the past few decades, companions have been left alone and lost, and companions have been drawn into the group of Daxu and died unexpectedly. Every time Amagai Susuke saw his comrades who had lost their troops, his heart was filled with pain. He wanted to go back several times, but before leaving, the Tsunayashiro hour still echoed in his ears. Those sinister words. If there is no news about Tojo Ayaya this time, Amagai Suisuke, there is no need for you to come back. The other party has the status of the largest noble in Soul Society and is also the biggest talker in room 46. Amagaisuke has no doubt that he will use this power to prevent him from returning to Soul Society. Decades have passed, and the Hueco Mundo expeditionary force led by Amagai Suzu and his group went as deep into Hueco Mundo as possible, but still found nothing. Amagai Susuke has never seen the figure of the vice captain named Tushiro even once. The only gain was hearing a strange legend about a Shinigami and a Vastad traveling together. Amagai Susuke wanted to investigate this point, but there was never any clue, and his team accidentally entered the Daxu group and suffered heavy losses. Advertisement. Originally, with the intention of joining Tsunayashiro, he contacted Kasumiyoji's family as soon as possible and obtained the Tapurai's sword, and then took the opportunity to take revenge on the captain. But I didn't expect that the time to return to Soul Society would be delayed again and again. Amagai Susuke originally thought that with his own strength, as long as he didn't encounter Vastad in Hueco Mundo, everything would be safe. However, as the number of Shinigami in the Hueco Mundo expedition force became smaller and smaller, there were also the sudden burst of unknown spiritual pressure in Hueco Mundo made him feel cold. If he meets the owner of this spiritual pressure, he will definitely die without a burial place. While Amagai Suosuke was deep in thought, a Shinigami hurriedly came to Amagai Suisuke for help. What's wrong, Mr. Amagai Susuke? Our 10-person advance exploration team was suddenly entangled by the Daxu group. Amagai Susuke. Although Amagai Susuke is now involved in Tsunayashiro time, he has always been an easygoing person with leadership skills, and is deeply trusted by all Shinigami. Amagai Susuke used Shunpo to consume spiritual pressure, and while sensing the spiritual pressure of the Daxu group, he hurried on his way. Wait for me. On the other side, Amagai Susuke's men are fighting a group of Jillians, and the Shinigami have released their Zanpakutos to harvest the swarming Daishu. Damn it. There are too many Jillians, it's impossible to kill them all. A Shinigami said loudly with strong fear. The other Shinigami kept his emotions and pretended to be calm and said, don't panic. Seton has already gone to call for help from Amagai-sama, just hold on for a little longer. Just hold on for a little longer. Suddenly, the big voids in front of me changed their direction strangely. Instead of attacking Shinigami, they chose to attack Jillian, who was standing aside. Jillian, who originally besieged the Expedition Force Shinigami, was split into two factions and began to fight within themselves. The Shinigami of the Hueco Mundo expedition looked at Jillian, who was originally besieging them, being attacked and devoured by the same Great Hollow on the other side. They looked at each other in shock, completely unaware of what was happening. What the hell is going on? A Shinigami asked in confusion. Don't relax. Stay vigilant. This anomaly is unusual, and the next wave may be a more terrifying attack. Reminded a Shinigami who looked more experienced. Huh. After Jillian fought with each other, leaving behind devastation, there was a sudden sound. What? Who is where? At this time, the billowing smoke after the melee between the Daxu dissipated, and the person standing in front of the team finally revealed his true appearance. The body and face were wrapped in white bones, and covered with eyes that made people feel numb. They looked very strange and terrifying. What is even more surprising is his lower body. This weirdo has no legs, but a peach-colored pumpkin-shaped ball floating off the ground. The pumpkin on the lower body is also covered with eyes. Oh, is it a Shinigami? No wonder these Jillians are attacking in a swarm. The pumpkin that suddenly appeared looked at the Shinigami of the Hueco Mundo Expedition Force. Don't worry about it, Jillian is gone, hurry up and get rid of this pumpkin monster, hurry up and join Mr. Amagai Suisuke. Said an impatient young bald Shinigami. Slow down. Before his companion could finish his words, the bald Shinigami held his Zanpakuto and prepared to chop the multi-eyed pumpkin Daxu into two pieces. It seems that you don't understand love. Pumpkin monster Daxu clasped his hands together and said slowly with emotion, then let me explain the truth of love to you. After saying that, the eyes of this weird-looking pumpkin Daxu suddenly opened, his whole body exuded his spiritual pressure, and the black pupils in his eyes instantly became larger. The next moment, the bald Shinigami, who was about to chop down the pumpkin monster Daxu, stopped the knife in his hand, as if time had been stopped. Toyama, what are you doing? The Shinigami behind shouted, calling the bald Shinigami's name. I don't know. Suddenly I lost control of my body. Wait, stop. Yuenshin howled loudly. He suddenly discovered in horror that his body was out of control and he could not help but stare. Looking at his body, he turned around and raised his Zanpakuto to slash at his companion behind him. The companions behind him also discovered a strange sun-shaped pattern on Yuanshan's body. At this time, the pumpkin monster Daxu showed a smile, as if he was going to devour them all like a devil. Chapter 15 Fierce Battle. Zommari vs Amagai Susuke. Brush. Toyama involuntarily hacked several Shinigami to death in succession, and in the end he was the only one left, looking with tears in his eyes as his Zanpakuto was stained with the blood of his companions. At this time, Pumpkin Daxu came over and said slowly, your companions are all Shinigami at the same level as you. Logically speaking, it is impossible for you to kill them all by yourself. But if they are undefended, under such circumstances, I believe that as a companion, this situation can be easily realized by you. Quote. Is this true love? The bald Shinigami Toyama shed tears, gritted his teeth and asked, what on earth is going on? Shoo. After Pumpkin Daxu heard Yuenshin's question, he smiled slightly and said, you will die soon, so I might as well tell you. This is my special ability as a Shu, love. Like, as the love that dominates everything, feel honored to die with this ability. Shinigami, you will feel the power of love soon. The multi-eyed Pumpkin Daxu said slowly, and issued a death sentence to Toyama. Next, Yuanshan watched as he suddenly took the knife with both hands and leaned the blade towards his neck. Toyama cried out in despair. He had been prepared for death since he joined the Hueco Mundo expedition as a Shinigami, but he could not accept dying under such a shameful ability. Call. When Toyama was about to commit suicide under the control of the pumpkin-shaped Daxu, Amagai Susuke suddenly appeared next to Toyama, grabbed Toyama's arm with one hand, and used all his strength to stop Toyama's suicide behavior. Huh. The multi-eyed pumpkin Daxu looked at the sudden appearance of Amagai Suisuke in confusion. At the same time, he was still trying to use his spiritual pressure in an attempt to strengthen his dominance. Can't move. How strong is this guy who suddenly emerged? Pumpkin Daxu asked in confusion. At this time, Pumpkin, with his many eyes and empty eyes, said, so that's it. It seems that you also have a loving heart. Love. Amagai Susuke grabbed Toyama's arm while chewing on Pumpkin Daxu's words. Since you also have a heart and love, it seems that it is necessary for me to kill you, so that I can witness the gap in love between you and me. But you have been blocking the suicide of your teammates, what means should be used to stop me? Where's the attack? After Pumpkin Daxu finished speaking, he stopped clasping his hands together and slowly stretched out his left hand. The palm of his left hand was spread out, and there was an eye in the center of the palm, emitting a yellow light. Damn it! The next wave of attacks is coming. Amagai Susuke cursed secretly. In the current situation, he had to choose to abandon the distant mountains. Amagai Susuke also made a decisive decision at this time and used his Zanpakuto to strike Toyama. At this time, Amagai Suisuke had no choice but to keep a certain distance between Shunpo and Pumpkin Daxu. Tianbei would rather kill Yuenshin himself than let the disgusting Daxu in front of him use such an ugly ability to insult Yuenshin. In the end, would you rather choose to kill your companions by yourself? That's a good reaction. If you were a few steps slower, you don't know what would have happened. Pumpkin Daxu glanced at the distant mountains and praised, you can do it in a very short time. It takes time to make a judgment and analyze my ability to execute the goal at such a speed. I admit that I underestimate you. Quote. Pumpkin Daxu tilted his head and said, tell me your name. Shinigami. Amagai Susuke pulled out his Zanpakuto, got into a fighting stance and said, Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force, Amagai Suosuke. My name is Zommari Lulu, remember this comes from the power of love. Pumpkin Daxu said loudly. Yes, this weird Daxu with many eyes and a pumpkin-like lower body is the seventh espada under Eisen, Zommari Lulu. Of course, the current Zommari Lulu has not met Eisen, has not been transformed into an Arrancar, and is simply seeking love in the Hueco Mundo desert. Advertisement. Amagaisu's assistant held the Zanpakuto and stared at Zommari with all his attention. Zommari also took a stance and looked at Amagai Suosuke. Cut it off, thunder fire. Amagai Susuke suddenly freed his Zanpakuto and used Shunpo to approach Zommari. Amagai Susuke's Zanpakuto is called Thunder Fire, and it was later transformed into a hook that can shoot flames. After Shikai, the pipes of the Thunderfire emit flames, heating the blade and giving it a more fiery color. By heating the blade, it becomes powerful enough to resist and repel Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho in the anime. Shikai. Zommari concentrated, but it's nothing to worry about. Fireball. Amagai Susuke focused the flames on the key point of the hook, and by swinging forward, launched a large fireball towards Zommari. Boom. Just when Amagaisuke's fireball was about to kill Commander Marley suddenly disappeared and avoided the fireball attack. What? This rotation speed. Amagai Susuke was shocked. Zommari suddenly appeared on the side and stretched out his hands towards Amagai Susuke. This way you have no room to hide, Shinigami. Feel the dominating power of love. Cursed Eye Senga. In this situation, Amagai Susuke had no choice but to stretch out his left hand to resist Zommari's attack. You gave up your left hand. What a wise choice. Zommari looked at Amagai Susuke and praised, but your left hand is already mine. Amagai Shuzuke. Two sun-shaped signs suddenly appeared on Amagai Susuke's left hand, which were exactly the same as those that appeared on Toyama before. What's going on? My left hand suddenly. Amagai Suisuke was surprised to find that his left hand suddenly lost control, unable to feel or move. It stabbed him in the heart with such speed. This left hand is no longer his. Brush. At the critical moment, Amagai Susuke swung the Zanpakuto in his right hand and cut off the tendons of his left hand. Did you cut off your own tendons? You were so decisive. Amagai Susuke said. Is your so-called love this kind of control ability? Zommari slowly explained. Just as there is moonlight only when there is sunlight, and there is fog only when there are clouds, everything is in a reality where one thing dominates another, and it can seize the power to dominate everything you see. This is my power. I call it love. Regarding the ugly ability to dominate others as love, only the ugly Kion can do it. Amagai Susuke said. Amagai Susuke raised the thunder fire with his remaining right hand, and the hook of the thunder fire slowly turned red. Zommari's eyes suddenly changed. Does it seem that arrogance is Shinigami's true nature? But it doesn't matter, just let me use my love to purify you and give everything about you to me. The pipes of thunder fire spurted flames, and Amagai Susuke's Zanpakuto became hot again. Amagai Susuke roared and retorted. This level of love. How can you control me? Chapter 16 The Key to Breaking Through Love. Bankai Thunder Flame Shell. Amagai Susuke roared angrily, regrouped his spiritual pressure, and used a larger fireball, throwing it towards Zommari. Boom. Zommari used the ring to avoid it, and looked at Amagai Suisuke with a dull look. Are you against the unique laws of nature? Sure enough, Shu and Shinigami have never been able to understand love for each other, so I can use all my power to purify you without any scruples. Cursed Eye Senga, fully open. Zommari looked at Tianbei Shoju said. Do you consider Shinigami and Kion on the same level? Then you are really thinking wrong. Amagai Susuke responded. Shinigami shoulders the responsibility of protecting mankind, guiding and purifying, hollow, and maintaining the balance of both worlds. Balance to prevent the world from becoming unstable and perishing. This is completely different from Shushi like you who only knows how to devour. Zommari seemed to be stung by Amagai Susuke's words. He opened his eyes all over his body and exploded his spiritual pressure completely. He said loudly. Don't look down on me, Shinigami. Are you taking it for granted and judging me? Only then can I say that Shinigami is arrogant. When will you Shinigami think about the emptiness that is killed by your ideals? When will you Shinigami think about every person in his existence? The meaning of pursuit. You take Zongshu for granted, but why do you deny my love? Amagai Susuke suddenly interrupted Zommari's speech. When did I say that I wanted to kill you because of my identity as Shinigami? Kion. Amagai Susuke held the Zanpakuto tightly in his right hand and said, I want to kill you because you have humiliated my subordinates. After finishing speaking, Amagai Susuke slammed the thunder hook onto the ground. Fire geyser. Spiritual pressure suddenly appeared under Zommari's body, and then a pillar of fire erupted in an attempt to devour him. This is this. Zommari immediately used the ring to avoid it and asked doubtfully. Fire geyser. I focus the fireball at the crux of the hook and by smashing it into the ground, create huge cracks of flames that travel at high speeds to the enemy. Of course you can also directional lock the headlock to directly choose to attack you. Tianbei Shoju came in pursuit and said. After Amagai Susuke turned around in Zommari, he smashed his Zanpakuto into the ground again and activated the second locking fire geyser. It's really a manifestation of arrogance. You probably don't know my full strength yet. Zommari said as he dodged the second attack. What? Zommari clasped his hands together and said, my power of love. The power to control everything in the eye is indeed powerful, but walking in Hueco Mundo, even having powerful abilities is useless. If I only use the power of love to control other hollows, I believe most hollows won't accept it, right? Ambei Shusuke pressed the thunder fire to the ground and said, what do you want to express? You probably think my most difficult ability is the love my eyes give off, right? Isn't it? Zommari smiled evilly and said, no, my most powerful ability is not love, but speed. Although I don't know you yet, but with the attack speed of your Zanpakuto, you can't defeat me. Quote. Boom. Zommari used the sound switch to teleport behind Amagai Suisuke and said, look, that's it. Your Zanpakuto attacks can't touch me at all. And I can appear behind you at any time. Amagai Suisuke smiled and said, look at this, wouldn't you just come over? Amagai Suisuke also disappeared in an instant, and appeared behind Zommari in the blink of an eye. You will never change your arrogant nature. Zommari sighed. Zommari turned around and said, I said that my most powerful ability is my speed, and with perfect speed and invincible power, there is no one who can't catch it. Advertisement. Boom. Zommari used the ring again and appeared on the side in an instant, with his hands spread out. Curse I Sanga. Accept the purification of love. Shinigami. Zommari yelled. Amagai Suisuke tensed up his nerves every moment he fought with Zommari. The moment Zommari disappeared, he activated his whole body spiritual pressure and used his fastest shunpo. Amagai Suisuke was at full speed, using the cover of the surrounding environment to barely dodge a few shots, and his figure flashed and hid behind a boulder. This Daxu is definitely not simple. It has an unprecedented speed of rotation and that tricky, love, ability. Amagai Suisuke thought carefully about Zommari's ability. No, that difficult love is the perfect breakthrough point. When I feel his love deeply, it feels like the Kidō technique is activated. Tien Beisho breathed a sigh of relief. If it's really like what I analyzed, it would be much easier to solve the problem. Now, the key is timing. Zommari slowly sensed the traces of spiritual pressure left by Amagai Suisuke, looked for him in the direction of hiding, and said to the sky, come out. Shinigami, when you killed my emptiness unscrupulously and as a matter of course, you have already buried with arrogance that needs to be purified by love. Just as Zommari was looking for Amagai Suisuke step by step, Amagai Suisuke suddenly burst out with extremely huge spiritual pressure. Bankai Thunder Flame Shell. The Zanpakuto in Amagai Suisuke's hand has completely changed. The weapon blade is larger, and the tip of the weapon blade can spray more powerful flames. A shield also appears on the top of the weapon, and the opening on the shield can still spray flames. Amagai Suisuke after Bankai, his body is constantly surrounded by fire crows, and his spiritual pressure has increased several times compared to Shikai. Zommari looked at Amagai Suisuke's Bankai and said, Shinigami, is this your special move? This is the first time I've seen a Shinigami who knows Bankai. Amagai Suisuke smiled and said, don't worry, this is also the last time you will see Bankai, because you are about to be killed by me. You are arrogant and arrogant. Can you really keep up with my speed? Zommari said, now I will show you my unique skill, twin rings. The principle of Schwanger ring spin is actually very simple. After the ordinary ring spin, a few small steps are added to form an afterimage, creating something like a clone. Up to 5 of these clones can be created. It has almost no effect in actual combat. The enemy has AoE group attack tricks, and flashy things like Schwanger Shangzuan will be easily cracked. Naturally, Ambei Shusuke did the same thing. Fire crack. Amagaisuke heated his Zanpakuto, and the Zanpakuto blade turned red again. Amagaisuke turned his Zanpakuto upside down and slammed him to the ground. Zommari sneered. Didn't I say, what if you Bankai with your speed? You can't attack me at all. Amagai Suisuke chuckled in a low voice. Is this the same trick as the one just now? At this time, the ground in Hueco Mundo shook, and flame pillars spurted out from the ground, merging into a huge wave of flames, sweeping towards Zommari. With this move, your acrobatic clone will come to an end. A huge wave of fire rushes forward and destroys any enemy enveloped in flames. In an instant, Zommari and his clone were wrapped in a tsunami of flames. Chapter 17 Zommari is defeated. The Sword City suddenly appears. Zommari and the 5 clones he created using Schwangerxiang were instantly drowned by the huge wave of flames. It's not over yet. Thunder Flame Bullet. Amagai Suisuke raised his Zanpakuto horizontally, and several spherical flames condensed on the front of the hook blade and shot out. Amagai Suisuke stared at the flames and mobilized his whole body's spiritual pressure to sense abnormal movements. He also knew that a mere move would definitely not be able to solve a big void like Zommari. Sure enough, the smoke slowly dispersed, and Zommari's figure slowly emerged. Zommari retracted his body into the pumpkin on his lower body, which still had burn marks. Pregnant posture. In the original work, Zommari shrinks his body into the pumpkin-shaped body of his lower body to avoid attacks, and his defense is so strong that even Byakuya Benkai cannot break it. Zommari's left hand stretched out from the pumpkin below, and then his hands moved his entire body to pull Zommari's body out of the pumpkin. Sure enough, it's just as I thought. After all, it's impossible to solve it for you with just one move. Amagai said coldly. Zommari made a reluctant voice. Damn it. Damn it. Shinigami's Benkai. How could he kill me? The next moment, the cracks in Zommari's forehead slowly opened, and several more terrifying eyes were revealed. The eyes on the forehead squirmed and turned to spy on everything around them. The next moment, his forehead and eyes were closed. After opening them, Zommari raised his spiritual pressure to the highest point in one breath. This is my love, my dominating power, Shinigami. Zommari opened his mouth wide and roared loudly, watch. Let my love wipe out your arrogance to the last bit. Curse I Senga. Dominate him in one breath. Amagai raised his Zanpakuto and said, Bakudo's 39 round gate fan. As soon as Zommari's love came into contact with the round gate fan was broken instantly, but the love was not passed on to Amagai. Zommari looked at his power failure and expressed confusion, as this. Amagai instantly approached Zommari and said, this is Kidō. I have noticed your attack ability from the beginning. The pattern of spiritual pressure emanating from it is similar to Shinigami's Kidō technique. You can use Kidō to deal with it, so naturally you think that your ability can be offset by Kidō. Amagai's assistant held a Zanpakuto and said, next, you are finished. Kion, you carry the soul of the Shinigami that you have ravaged and trampled on, and I will kill you. Damn, unforgivable. Hurry up and accept my love. Zommari's anxious activation ability. Brush. Amagai used Shunpo, and his figure appeared behind Zommari, and said coldly, it seems that your irritability has completely made you lose your mind. I said, you will be trampled by you. Shinigami's soul died. It's over. Booming dragon fang burning knife. Amagai Susuke's thunder fire ignited with blazing flames, and then with a wave of his right hand, he chopped off Zommari in the chest. Before Zommari's soul entered Hueco Mundo and fell into Hueco Mundo, he was just an ordinary young man in this world. He was in a place where black people gathered, so robberies and fights were inevitable. However, Commander Marley does not like violence in this world, which makes him seem out of place, and he naturally becomes the target of bullying from all around. Until he met a kind-hearted priest. The priest is his only close friend in this land. He told Zommari, the environment he is in cannot be changed, so it is better to learn to settle and influence everything around him with love. Zommari listened to the priest and became loving. He would take the initiative to do things that others couldn't do. Sure enough, the environment around Zommari gradually became better. Advertisement. People around him will ask Zommari to help solve all their problems, and Zommari will not refuse. He just thinks this is a manifestation of love. Until something unexpected happened. That night, several young people around Zommari were discovered by the security when they went shopping for 0 yuan. During the hunt, they stuffed all the stolen money directly into Zommari's bag. Because the real prisoner wore a mask, the surrounding environment was not monitored, and the robbers were handcuffed, making it difficult to search. Naturally, Zommari, who holds the stolen money, becomes the first suspect. Zommari was tried and thrown into prison. Why is this happening? Don't I always treat others with love? Why would this happen to me again? Real love. Does real love really exist? As the so-called dominance the real love. In prison, Zommari's soul gradually deteriorated. In this way, Zommari came to Hueco Mundo. For some unknown reason, Zommari gained the ability to control others through his eyes. Based on his doubts during his lifetime, he named this ability, love. He firmly believes that it was the gods who gave him this power to influence everything around him. This power is the power that the gods expect. Love in the name of dominance. Zommari fell to the ground and got up with difficulty. I haven't found the truth about love yet. It is absolutely impossible for me to die. Amagai had already sensed that Zommari's spiritual pressure was gradually weakening, and released his Bankai stance. When he was about to leave, he suddenly heard movement behind him. Amagai said in surprise, obviously the spiritual pressure is about to dissipate, but why do you have to get up? This spirit does not match Shugen. It seems that I have to give you one more blow before I can leave. Don't think about surviving the next blow, Shu. Amagai pulled out the Zanpakuto and inserted back into his waist. I won't die. I will definitely find true love. Zommari continued to use his hands as if he didn't see Amagai He crawled hard on the ground. It's over. Amagai waved his Zanpakuto expressionlessly towards Zommari, who was defenseless. Bite. At this time, a man suddenly appeared in front of Amagai standing between him and Zommari, and at the same time he stretched out a finger to touch Amagai Zanpakuto. There aren't many Shu with pursuits, so why do you want to destroy them completely? A man with black hair and a tattered death domination uniform said calmly. Amagai was shocked that someone could appear in front of him in an instant. He immediately became vigilant. Shinigami. How can there be a Shinigami here that I haven't seen before? Amagai stared closely at the flashing mysterious Shinigami, and suddenly realized, no. You are Tojo Ayaya. The mysterious Shinigami suddenly appeared and said with a smile, "It's interesting. I didn't know I would be so famous. Actually, there are still Shinigami from the Hueco Mundo expedition who know me. I'm really surprised. Let me guess, you should know Tsunayashiro." Chapter 18 Pure Spiritual Pressure Crushing. The second Espada member. Shift the perspective to Knife City and move back time. The texture of this spiritual pressure. It seems that I have found something worth admiring. Ayaya Toshiro, who was halfway there, felt the spiritual pressure emanating from the battle not far away. "Master Toshiro, please tell me what to do next." Harribel saw what Toshiro Ayaya was thinking and stepped forward and said. Daochung said. "Nothing, Harribel, let's go to the place where this spiritual pressure is. Believe me, I will give the confused person the power to walk back to the right path, and he will become our new companion." Bite. Toshiro used only one finger to hold Amagai Susuke's Zanpakuto. Toshiro's fingers bent and directly clamped the thunder fire. Amagai Susuke suddenly found that his Zanpakuto was held by Yoruichi Tojo Ayaya's finger. But when he drew the sword, it was like taking root. Even if he exhausted all his strength, the Zanpakuto remained motionless. "I'm sorry, I was only concerned about the confused soul, and forgot that your Zanpakuto is still held by me, so I'll give it back to you." Tojo Ayaya relaxed her feelings towards Amagai Susuke's Zanpakuto in an instant. Oppression. Quote exclamation mark quote. Amagai Suisuke used all his strength when he drew the sword. The moment Tojo released his finger, his body fell backwards involuntarily. When Amagai Susuke fell backward, he quickly did a backflip and stood on the ground again. Then Shunpo quickly distanced himself, tensed his whole body and looked at Toshiro Ayaya. Toshiro Ayaya calmly looked at Amagai Suisuke and said, "You know me. So that's it. It's very interesting. Did that old guy tell you about Tsunayashiro?" "Do you know Tsunayashiro, sir, Toshiro's deputy captain?" Amagai Suisuke asked. "I am no longer the vice captain. Besides, since you call Tsunayashiro Toki-sama and still appear in Hueco Mundo, we probably are not on the same journey." Toshiro said slowly, "Draw your sword. This is your responsibility, the task assigned to you by room 46. Cut it off, thunder fire." Amagai Susuke's Zanpakuto turned into a hook style again, with several tubes on the handle. Zommari was still crawling on the ground, dying, still muttering, "Love, love." "Deputy Captain Daochung, before we start, I want to kill this Shu first. You don't have any objections to this, right?" Ambei Shuzuke said. Daochung shook his head and said, "Didn't I stop you just now?" Amagai Shuzuke, it is not a good habit to ignore other people's previous requests like this. How do you know my name?" Amagai Suisuke asked Toshiro in confusion. He remembered that he had never introduced himself, and Toshiro had defected from Hueco Mundo 100 years ago. How could he know him? Daochung smiled slightly. "I know everything, how can you conclude that I will never understand you?" Amagai Suisuke shook his head and said, "These are not important. For me, I have only one goal, to defeat you." Bankai Thunder Fire Industry Flame Shell. Boom Flame Thunder Fang. Amagai Shusuke didn't say much, and directly chose Bankai without hesitation. Then he attached a large amount of spiritual pressure to the thunder fire, and instantly a huge pillar of fire rushed up from the souls of Daochung, submerging Daochung in the flames. The pillar of fire continued to spray for several minutes, seeming to burn everything inside. Flame Thunder Fang is my strongest single target attack move at the moment. If you take this move directly, even you won't be able to hold on, Deputy Captain of Daochung. Amagai Susuke looked at the burning pillar of fire and said, "Although I don't know what grudges you have with room 46, everything is over now." At this time, the voice came from the fire pillar, still casual but extremely charming. "Flame Thunder Fang. It's an interesting move, but it's useless." Daochung stood in the fire pillar and said like a god. "What?" Amagai Shusuke said in disbelief. Advertisement. Self-righteousness is scarier than anything else, especially when you believe too much in your own superior strength or talent, the results will be even worse. And these tricks of yours, I can easily block them with my spiritual pressure. Daochung fell to the ground, he taught Amagai Susuke. There wasn't even a speck of dust on his body, and Bankai's strongest single target attack just now had no effect. "You said using spiritual pressure to completely isolate it?" Amagai Susuke asked. "Yes," Tojo Ayaya explained. Reiatsu is not only a Zanpakuto or a driving tool when using Kidō, it also has extremely powerful defensive effects and attack capabilities. Simply attack with spiritual pressure. Tojo Ayaya said. "Ha, can't you understand? Then let you feel the pure spiritual pressure attack." Boom. The moment Daochung activated his spiritual pressure, Amagai Susuke felt unable to stand, and a majestic spiritual pressure poured out from Daochung as the center to the surrounding world. Terrifying spiritual pressure filled the surrounding air, and the space visible to the naked eye was shaking. Plop. Suddenly, Amagai Susuke fell to his knees, and the spiritual pressure that was enough to tear apart the space and crush the sky was poured onto him. What frightens Amagai Suisuke even more is that the touch this spiritual pressure brings to him is from the same person as the spiritual pressure he encountered in Hueco Mundo, Tojo Ayaya. He actually wanted to kill such a person, and Ambei Shoju laughed at his former self from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, Amagai Susuke suddenly felt his body light up, and Tachi had already withdrawn his spiritual pressure. "How? Next, please take action," Tojo Ayaya said calmly. Amagai Susuke sighed in distress. You know you're defeated, so why take action? Toshiro Ayaya said. I think so. So Amagai Suisuke, are you willing to submit to me? I will bring you new power. Amagai Suisuke didn't speak, he looked at Zommari who was still lying on the side. There were also 4 female Arrancars who later jumped out behind the Knife City. Although he didn't know what Arrancar was, he still saw at a glance that Harribel and the others were Shu. Do you want me to be associated with Shu? Vice Captain Daochung, it seems that the judgment of Room 46 is not unjust to you. Amagai Suisuke said. Daochung looked indifferent and said, the rules can be changed at any time. What is important is yourself, not your identity. Shinigami, who is in the position of purifying the 3 realms, is degenerated by being associated with Hollow. I am right. Vice Captain of Tojo. Amagai Suisuke is still stubborn. It seems you have already given the answer, right? Toshiro Ayaya said, looking into Amagai Suisuke's eyes. Brush. The next moment, Tojo appeared directly behind Amagai Suisuke. A deep slash appeared on Amagai Suisuke's chest. Amagai Suisuke's body slowly collapsed to the ground, and his spiritual pressure suddenly dissipated. In the anime, Amagai Suisuke finally commits suicide to atone for his sins with determination, and Toshiro also knows that he cannot conquer him. Even if he is forced to surrender, various things will happen, and even his plan to counterattack Soul Society will be leaked, not to mention that his system has not given him the tools to completely change a person. This is always an uncertain factor. The moment before Amagai Suisuke said his refusal, Tachi had already predetermined his result. Following the death of Amagai Suisuke, Toshiro Ayaya turned to look at Zommari who was lying aside. Due to the impact of Tojo's release of spiritual pressure just now, Zommari's condition became even worse. Toshiro Ayaya raised the corners of her lips and said meaningfully to Harribel, start preparing for Arrancarization. Also, the second espada has been obtained. Chapter 19 Zommari Arrancarization. Follow me, I will let you realize what the true name of love is. In the cave again, Daochung looked at Zommari, who was seriously injured. Just prepare to be Arrancarized. He is too seriously injured. After the Arrancarization is completed, his injuries will heal automatically. Daochung said thoughtfully. Tojo Ayaya took out Hōgyoku and said to Harribel, keep the surrounding quiet and don't let anyone get close to here. Harribel bent down and said respectfully, yes, Master Daochung. After Harribel led the 2 Arrancars out, Tojo Ayaya held Hōgyoku in her hand and said, now let me see the real power, the real love. The Arrancar transformation begins. What's going on? Didn't I get hurt by that arrogant Shinigami? Zommari sat up in confusion and looked around. Zommari remembered that after he was seriously injured by Amagai Suisuke, he lay on the ground with difficulty. During his repeated struggles, he was hit by a surge of spiritual pressure and completely lost consciousness. Quote. Zommari was surprised to find that the pumpkin on his lower body was gone and turned into human feet. What is going on? Are you awake? Our new companion, a man with yellow hair and brown skin, said next to Zommari. Zommari observed her carefully. Is it a Shinigami? Or a human? This spiritual pressure doesn't look like it. Is it a hollow? But this posture. At this time, Zommari noticed the man sitting at the top, and he said in surprise, is it Shinigami? Shinigami and Shu are together. You don't need to be surprised. You just need to understand that we are companions, and I am the one responsible for guiding you to the new world. The man sitting at the top said slowly. Lead me to the new world. Led me to the new world. Zommari repeated. The man smiled gently and said, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Tojoki Ayaya. I am a person who specializes in giving new meaning to confused souls. I am just an ordinary Shinigami who desires to break the world. New meaning. Breaking the world. Daochung said. I see, isn't your current posture the one I bestowed upon you? Advertisement. Zommari felt his whole body and found that the changes in his body were not limited to the pumpkin in his lower body. The mask on his face disappeared and turned into a necklace-like bone spur on his head. Other than that, his whole body was no different from humans or Shinigami. What surprised him even more was that he also owned a Zanpakuto. This was obviously something that Shinigami only had, so why would he, the Great Hollow, also have it? In addition, the transformation in spiritual pressure also surprised him extremely. This was not the same as the increase in spiritual pressure, but a subdimensional improvement in quality. As far as Zommari's own feelings are concerned, with his current posture, he can definitely defeat Amagai Suisuke just now. Daochung, who was sitting at the top, said in a seductive tone, we are companions, and I am your leader. I give the virtual the meaning of existence and change their confusion. I give them strength and let them find the truth. Daochung stood up, walked to Zommari, stretched out his hand and said, and now I need your loyalty, can you do it? Arrancar, who is pursuing love. Zommari looked at Toshiro Ayaya, and tears suddenly flowed from his eyes. Are you the real God? My prayers were not in vain, and they made me realize the person who really made me understand love. I vow to follow you, Lord Daochung. Long live. Daochung smiled and said with satisfaction, I have already felt your loyalty. Zommari's change at this time is almost the same as in the original work. Zommari after Arrancar is a tall, muscular black man with thick lips. With golden eyes, a pair of skull-shaped earrings and a thick bone necklace, the remnants of his void mask consist of a row of bone spurs along the top of his head, forming something resembling a mohawk, with the void hole located on his right chest. Its mask is the skull earrings on its ears. Toshiro looked at Zommari's hesitant expression and smiled. Are you thinking about the Shinigami incident before? Don't worry, that matter has been resolved, not to mention that he will not have any impact on us. Zommari lowered his head and said, I obey, Lord Daocheng. Daocheng spoke confidently. After all, our goal is to achieve equality in the three realms, to recreate the true order, and to create a real world that belongs to us. Now, the next step is to take down the King of Hueco Mundo. Toshiro put his hands behind his back and squinted his eyes, as if he wanted to see through the whole world. Chapter 20 Encounter with Nnoitra. Zommari's first battle. Zuquan, on the throne of Zai Palace. Baraggan looked like he was sleeping with his right hand on his chin, but in fact he was very scared inside. Every time he sat on the throne, he felt restless. He always felt that someone would destroy his throne and take away his position as the King of Hueco Mundo. What he was thinking more about was the terrifying spiritual pressure that erupted in Hueco Mundo before. If he has thoughts about my throne. If he comes to fight me. If he gets the best of me. Baraggan was always thinking about the issue of gaining or losing his throne, so that he was very upset. As the King of Hueco Mundo, Baraggan lacks anything to break through the common sense, nor does he have the demeanor of a king. He is just a frog in the well holding his own crown and hiding in Zai Palace to feel complacent. Baraggan said to Daxu beside him, the spiritual pressure that appeared before, what is the reward for Shu who went to investigate it? Hearing the question from the king above, a bunch of strange-looking Yachukas under the throne shook their heads in thought, and answered hesitantly, no. No. Baraggan looked at Yachukas below and cursed secretly, what a bunch of rubbish. But it's this bunch of rubbish that makes me feel like a king. Continue to send Daxu forward to search. I must know what the spiritual pressure was last time. Baraggan felt unhappy, but still gave the order to continue the search. Without investigating the origin of that spiritual pressure, Baraggan would have trouble sleeping and eating as the King of Hueco Mundo. On the other side, Daocheng led 4 Arrancar on the way to Zai Palace. What on earth has this guy Zommari Luru been doing after being out for so long? Harribel's subordinate officer Mira Rose said unhappily. Mira Rose, be quiet. Harribel saw Mira Rose's dissatisfaction and immediately stopped her. After all, the leader, Tojo Ayaya, had not yet spoken. Toshiro Ayaya still half closed her eyes, leaning against the cave wall and dozing off. After hearing the conversation between Harribel and Mira Ross, she stood up and said, then let's go over and have a look. That guy Zommari seems to have encountered something very interesting. Sword City sent Zommari to explore the news of Zai Palace, but there has been no news until now. Sword City does not feel that there is anything in Hueco Mundo that can threaten Zommari after Arrancar transformation. But after all, if Baraggan, the King of Hueco Mundo, was dispatched, it would be uncertain, so Daocheng decided to check what happened ahead. On the other side, Zommari kept catching some weak Shu and asked them about the direction and recent situation of Shuyi Palace. When Zommari caught a dog-shaped Yachukas again, he asked, where is Zai Palace? What's going on in Baraggan recently? Tell me. The Yachukas said tremblingly, if you do this, Mr. Baraggan will not let you go. Ah, I said, Mr. Baraggan is still in Hueco Mundo, ask us to investigate the whereabouts of the spiritual pressure that appeared in front. At first, after Zommari caught Daxu, their attitude was generally tough. Advertisement. But after Zommari released the suppressive spiritual pressure, he relaxed and revealed all the recent information about Baraggan. Zommari threw the Shu on the ground and said, I have too little contact with the Shu group, and there is actually a Shu who doesn't know the power of Lord Daocheng, and still regards Na Baraggan as king, and also attempts to investigate Lord Daocheng. Isn't this a sign of arrogance? Suddenly, behind Zommari, yellow sand rolled. A thin but extremely tall mantis-headed man stood over there. He was like a bamboo pole and seemed to fall over when the wind blew, but the spiritual pressure he exuded showed that this guy was not easy to mess with. And he also has 4 arms, each with a large sickle. Seeing this, Zommari drew his Zanpakuto and prepared for it. Is this the new arrogant one? This mantis-like creature was extremely excited, with a hint of indescribable excitement. Hey, the spiritual pressure you released just now is really interesting. The mantis-like Daxu shouted excitedly to Zommari, then come and fight me. After speaking, Mantis Daxu waved his 4 arms and rushed forward. After Zommari saw his attack, he also waved his Zanpakuto to fight with him. After a brief exchange between Mantis Daxu's scythe and Zommari's Zanpakuto, both sides jumped back to distance themselves. You're such an interesting guy. You actually lost your mask, but you can still draw the knife so quickly. The mantis-like figure with 4 arms shouted to Zommari. The mantis-headed Daxu shouted, no matter how you lost your mask, then join me. I have never objected to fighting with the strong. Not interested, Zommari said expressionlessly while holding his Zanpakuto in response to Mantis Daxu's attack. Zommari used the ring to appear in front of Mantis Daxu, raised his Zanpakuto and stabbed him. I have dedicated everything to Lord Tojo. The mantis-headed Daxu waved his hand to deflect Zommari's attack. The steel skin of this Daxu was actually able to withstand Zommari's Zanpakuto blow. Sword City. Who is that? A strong man like you can actually succumb to others. Mantis Daxu seemed to have heard something interesting and laughed. Zommari put the knife across his chest. Speaking of it, after the battle just now, I have understood that I will not kill you. Master Daocheng needs your power. The next step is the end. Mantis Daxu burst out his spiritual pressure again, and the yellow spiritual pressure wind surged up. He shouted. How could I lose to a guy like you? Zommari placed the sword horizontally on the front and back of his chest, and loosened his fingers little by little. The Zanpakuto actually stayed in midair. Zommari made a circle with his fingers, and then clapped his hands inward. Calm down, cursed eyes Maga. The mantis-shaped Daxu looked at Zommari's return. Zommari's head rotated 90 degrees clockwise, and the Zanpakuto folded 5 times toward the center. Then a large number of gray spirits emerged from each corner of the Zanpakuto. Pressure smoke surrounded Zommari's whole body. Mantis Daxu was shocked. What is this? Isn't he a Shu? Why is he still freeing the Zanpakuto? What kind of combat method is this? The gray smoke turned into running water and dispersed little by little, and Zommari's figure reappeared. At this time, Zommari's body has not changed much from his original self. He still has the shape of eyes and a pumpkin on his lower body. The only difference is that he has a face that is close to a human. Zommari clasped his hands together and said, this move is called Returning Blade, and it was Lord Daocheng who gave me the power. Mantis Daxu. No matter what tricks you use, I will break him. Come on, strong man. Remember the name of the person who is about to kill you. My name is Nnoitra Zerla. Chapter 21 Nnoitra was subdued. Given 3 chances. This mantis-headed Daxu with 4 scythe arms, a thin body but a very tall figure, is the 5th Espada under Eisen in the original work, Nnoitra Gilgis. Ah! Nnoitra yelled, void flash. He opened his mouth wide, and the yellow spiritual pressure gathered towards him, and then the yellow flash flew towards Zommari at an explosive speed. Boom! Nnoitra's false flash struck Commander Marley, instantly stirring up dust all over the sky. Nnoitra waved 4 arms to follow up, cut through the smoke with a scythe, and further attacked Zommari. Zommari took his time, stretched out his hands and aimed at Nnoitra, and the eyes on his body slowly opened like a demon. After seeing Zommari's movements, Nnoitra shouted even more excitedly, if you have any moves, just use them. My purpose is just to die in the hands of a strong person. Arrogant Shu, just wait for the arrival of Lord Daocheng under my control. Zommari said as if praying. After finishing speaking, the pupils in his palms instantly enlarged, and the power of love immediately acted on Nuo. On Itra. Several sun-shaped marks suddenly appeared on Noitra's feet. Nnoitra asked strangely, what is this? Why can't the feet suddenly move? While Nnoitra was being controlled, Zommari appeared and said, your feet have been purified by me. Your feet now belong to me. Now I will take away the control of your limbs and arms. With his whole body controlled by Zommari, Nnoitra asked loudly, what on earth did you do? I said that Master Daocheng needs your power. What I am doing now is nothing more than eliminating your own arrogance. Zommari said to Nnoitra. Do you want me to surrender to someone named Daocheng that I have never seen before? My uncle, I will not be controlled by you like this. Nnoitra resisted with all his strength. Thud, thud, 2 hands suddenly shot out of Noitra's upper ribs. What is this? Zommari was so overwhelmed by this sudden incident that he didn't even use the teleport for a moment. Nnoitra said with a cruel smile. Now, I finally caught you. The outstretched hand directly clasped Zommari's shoulder like a sharp claw, and the joints of the other hand twisted and grew a sickle. Looking at Zommari who was caught by him, Nnoitra raised a cruel smile. Zommari was stunned for a moment. This guy. What kind of desire to fight does he have? Nnoitra took advantage of Zommari's momentary relaxation and slashed a wound on Zommari's body with one swing of his arm, and then swung Zommari to a stone pillar 1,000 meters away. The stone pillar was shattered by Noitra's swing, and Zommari slowly got up. I still have such a thing after Lord Sword City gave me power. Performance. What emerged in Zommari's mind was not the murderous intention for Nnoitra, nor the anger for being injured, but the deep guilt for Ayaya Tojo. Obviously being given the power of Arrancar by the City of Swords and returning to the sword himself, Zommari teleported out of the pit the next moment. Curse I Sangha. Zommari decided to maximize his ability and completely purify Nnoitra. Advertisement. At this Time, the voice of Toshiro Ayaya sounded next to Zommari. Zommari Lulu, you did a good job, but you can retreat now. Daocheng had already led Harribel and the others to search all the way, and saw Zommari's Nnoitra flying away. Scene. Lord Daocheng, Zommari felt very guilty when he saw Daocheng standing in front of him. Daocheng said, I thought that no one in Hueco Mundo could cause harm to Arrancar except those bastards. I didn't expect this situation to happen. Is this purely a matter of strength? No, it should be considered extreme. The desire to fight is right. Although Nnoitra injured Zommari and knocked him away, Zommari still maintained the spiritual pressure of the cursed Sangha. As a result, although Nnoitra injured Zommari, he still could not escape love, control. Nnoitra looked at Ayaya Tojo who appeared in front of her and smiled. It's Shinigami. You are the Tojo that the guy just mentioned, right? What are you going to do? Daocheng looked at Nnoitra, said nothing nonsense, and said calmly, submit to me, and then I will give you new power. Or die. Haha. Nnoitra laughed directly. He felt very funny. Shouldn't his life be decided by Zommari who controlled himself? When did he become the guy in front of him? This guy actually dares to be disrespectful to Master Daocheng. Zommari immediately stepped forward to teach Nnoitra a lesson after seeing it. Even Harribel's 3 female Arrancars stared at Nnoitra with unkind expressions. Nnoitra looked at these hollows and was very puzzled why Zommari and the others respected a Shinigami so much. No, there is a deeper meaning than respect. What kind of power does this seemingly humble Shinigami give them? Zommari directly controlled Nnoitra's hand and pointed the sickle of Nnoitra's arm at his neck. Zommari bowed his head and asked Ayaya Tojo for instructions. Should we execute this brave man now? You are acting recklessly. Master Daocheng, please show me. Tojo Ayaya is still calm. Conquering these Daxu is not just about surrendering from the spiritual level. In the original work, Eisen Sosuke also relied on his unique strength to suppress Espada, and gathered these Daxu with their own evil intentions into one. A whole. Daocheng waved his hand towards Zommari and said, Zommari, release him from control. Although the time they got together was short, Zommari also knew that he could not go against Lord Sword City's will, so he immediately cancelled his ability and released his control over Nnoitra. As soon as the restraints on Noitra's body were released, he revealed the scythe in his hand again, and then exploded his own spiritual pressure. Daocheng was bathed in Noitra's spiritual pressure and said as usual, I can give you 3 chances to take action. You only need to touch me once and you can leave safely, but on the contrary, your loyalty should it's mine. Nnoitra thought for a while, then stretched out her tongue and laughed maliciously. Nnoitra put her hand on the ground and said, Search finger method. The finger search method is different from the detection circuit. Nnoitra searches for the potential status and power of the opponent's spiritual pressure by touching the object with his hand. Nnoitra felt the spiritual pressure of Daocheng and said in confusion, the spiritual pressure is very ordinary, not even an ant. Suddenly, Nnoitra burst out with spiritual pressure without any warning, kicked the ground hard, and his body was ejected like a string, and 6 scythes were slashing towards the vital parts of Toshiro Ayaya. Nnoitra yelled cruelly, how can Shinigami, who is not even an ant, make me surrender? Die, and hate your own carelessness at the same time. Shinigami. Chapter 22 Daocheng takes action. Unimaginably powerful. Nnoitra has an arrogant personality and likes to taunt. He often claims that Espada is the strongest. Because of the strength of the steel skin, he also says that the Shinigami's sword cannot hurt him. He is very belligerent, but unlike Grimmjow Jakarjak, who is equally belligerent but pursues all-out fighting on an equal footing, Nnoitra will often use means such as sneaking in and sneak attacks to defeat his opponents. Now, too, Nnoitra aimed at the gap and launched a sudden attack on Daocheng, trying to kill Daocheng with one move. Daocheng said, do you want to attack directly? Still have a semi-sneak attack attitude. This habit is not good. Although Nnoitra has a despicable and cruel personality, he is not ruthless. When he realizes Kenpachi's powerful strength, he will also excitedly shout to the subordinate officer Dazzler who is confronting Kenpachi to run away. He can still be subdued. Roll. Shinigami. You will regret it. Nnoitra burst out with spiritual pressure and slashed hard at the vital points of the Sword City with the scythe. Boom. A large scythe from Nnoitra struck directly on the Sword City, and the violent spiritual pressure stirred up a large amount of sand and dust. When Zommari and Harribel saw it, they were shocked at the same time and pulled out their Zanpakutos in unison. Lord Tojo. Nnoitra felt something strange about the sickle. It didn't feel like it was being hit. What's going on? Why is there a strange feeling when it's hit? Did you really hit it? A calm voice came from the smoke. The dust dispersed, and Daocheng still stood there, looking at Nnoitra calmly with his hands in his pockets. There is still spiritual pressure surrounding Toshiro Ayaya's body. There is no doubt that the spiritual pressure wiped out Noitra's powerful slash. After Zommari and Harribel saw that Tojo Ayaya was unharmed, they silently pushed back the sword that was about to be drawn out. Zommari cursed secretly. He actually didn't believe in Lord Daocheng's strength. It seemed that he was a little arrogant, and actually thought that the great Lord Daocheng would be injured in front of this mantis-headed Daxu. How is it possible? I didn't move my body and just used spiritual pressure to completely prevent him. Nnoitra couldn't imagine what his eyes were seeing. Toshiro Ayaya said, there are still 2 moves left, let's go ahead. Nnoitra burst out with all his spiritual pressure, and the yellow spiritual pressure spread out like light. Noitra's 6 arms moved together, and 6 terrifying scythes slashed at Tojo Ayaya with powerful spiritual pressure. Nnoitra shouted, Shinigami, you can defend against 1 arm, but are you sure you can defend against the attacks of the 6 arms? When 6 sickles struck at a position only a few centimeters away from Daocheng's body, but he suddenly couldn't move forward an inch. It felt as if it had been struck on steel, and it seemed as if there was nothing in front of me. When did you have the illusion that I can't prevent you? Daocheng said. Impossible, impossible, impossible. The defense in Noitra's heart was ruthlessly torn apart by Ayaya Tojo. Even if Tojo made some moves, he would not be so panicked. The Shinigami in front of him was far more powerful than he imagined. Damn it! Nnoitra shouted, her figure flashing. Boom! Nnoitra instantly appeared behind Tojo Ayaya. False flash. Nnoitra opened his mouth wide, and his most powerful yellow flash was condensed from the tip of his tongue. Nnoitra locked the position of Sword City and launched his strongest blow. The terrifying virtual flash streaked through the air, stirring up the air, and the terrifying heat energy seemed to be breaking through everything, attacking towards Sword City Ayaya. Is it a false flash? It seems that the spiritual pressure has become unstable. Are you anxious? Toshiro Ayaya seemed to have eyes on her back and turned around slightly. The virtual flash of Nnoitra's strongest attack suddenly stopped in front of Tushiro's eyes. The last yellow flash that gathered Nnoitra's strongest spiritual pressure was like a toy. It burst like a bubble in front of Tojo Ayaya. Doesn't stir up any waves. Nnoitra himself didn't believe that his strongest virtual flash was shattered like a toy in the hands of the man in front of him. Advertisement. Who is this Shinigami? Fear spread in Nnoutra's heart, and his 3 chances had been used up. Daocheng walked up to Nnoitra and said, I said I would give you 3 chances. Now it's my turn to take action, right? Nnoitra hadn't recovered yet and nodded blankly. He didn't know why he nodded. Daocheng showed a smile, put his hand in front of him, and turned his palm over. Suddenly, the surrounding space began to vibrate. The endless spiritual pressure started from Tojo Ayaya and ruthlessly raged around, but suddenly the spiritual pressure changed direction. The endless spiritual pressure suddenly changed direction and poured towards the top of Nnoitra. After this period of exploring herself, Tojo Ayaya obviously found that her control of spiritual pressure became easier than before. While the Sword City was pouring out spiritual pressure, several Arrancars on the side were also shocked as before. They all chose to kneel down to relieve the pressure, but this time the spiritual pressure came quickly and disappeared after a while. Tojoki Ayaya's spiritual pressure has changed its direction. It is no longer mindlessly pouring out around like before, but has reached the point of precise control. The space is still trembling, the gravity is distorting, and a spiritual pressure pillar standing straight into the sky stands in Hueco Mundo. Harribel said in a daze, Master Daocheng has become stronger again. Zommari Kidō on the side. Lord Tojo has always been so powerful. Long live Lord Tojo. Long live Lord Tojo. When dealing with Nnoitra in Knife City, Zommari did not forget to praise him. The Arrancars around him have different emotions, but they are all full of respect and loyalty to the City of Swords. Tojo Ayaya looked down at Nnoitra who was lying on the ground expressionlessly. Nnoitra finally understood why the 2 Daxons surrendered to Tojo Ayaya. That Shinigami was so powerful that they didn't have the courage to catch up. Under the ravage of powerful spiritual pressure, Nnoitra vomited blood, and 6 side arms were also cut off by spiritual pressure. Feeling that the resistance of Nnoitra's spiritual pressure was getting weaker and weaker, the will to survive in him was dying. Toshiro withdrew the torrential spiritual pressure in an instant. Toshiro controlled his own spiritual pressure and continued to exercise during the process of falling asleep, so that it was easy to control it. Nnoitra was in a daze, feeling that the pressure on her body suddenly disappeared. Noitra's spiritual pressure dimmed, and her thoughts began to make associations. Ah, were I going to die? But my pursuit came true, and I died in the hands of a truly strong man. People can cultivate flowers to bloom and appreciate them. But there is absolutely no thought of letting flowers know about themselves. In just 3 moves, all the skills and fighting inspiration I have accumulated for 100 years were revealed. I wish I had passed all of this on to him, the Shinigami named Toshiro. But that Shinigami didn't give it all, and he wasn't even qualified to take it seriously, so I felt guilty for him. In short, I am very glad that I finally died in the hands of a strong man, rather than due to the aging of my soul or bad means. My wish as a hollow finally came true. Suddenly, words that made Nnoitra memorable and frightening came over. It was the Daxu next to Shinigami who was speaking. Zommari scolded angrily. Get up. The Arrancar transformation given to you by Master Daocheng has been completed perfectly. How long do you want to lie down? Chapter 23 I said, your loyalty belongs to me. Time goes back an hour. Daocheng stood in front and looked at Nnoitra who was lying on the ground dying. He turned to Harribel and Zommari and said, take him to the original cave and prepare for Arrancarization. Although Zommari was dissatisfied with Noitra's previous disrespect towards Ayaya Tojo, he still followed Tojo's will. He dragged one of Noitra's feet with his hand, but regardless of how the rest of Noitra's body was on the sand, he followed behind Ayaya Tojo. Nnoitra asked doubtfully, why? Why don't you kill me? Zommari shook his head and said, all this is the will of Master Daocheng, I can't make the decision. Nnoitra looked back at Toshiro Ayaya, who was sitting at the top. At this time, Toshiro Ayaya was completely different from what he had perceived outside before. Sitting at the top, although there is no exclusive seat, what you think and see shows your powerful demeanor. What does it mean to be without a throne like a throne? Toshiro Ayaya said calmly, why don't I kill you? Because we made an agreement before. After you lose, your loyalty belongs to me. Toshiro Ayaya treated this Qian Nnoitra disrespectfully towards him, and treated everything with magnanimity. He has always been a very generous person, but if the rules exceed his boundaries or there is a real threat to him, he will actually kill the opponent. Before, when he killed Amagai Susuke, he was just considering the identity of his opponent Tsunayashiro Toki's subordinate. Before he counterattacks Soul Society, he wants to make sure that nothing unknown will appear to disturb him. I have given you new power, just like Zommari and Harribel. Daocheng said calmly. Nnoitra glanced at Harribel and the 4 Arrancars on Zommari's side, and immediately understood what he had given her. Nnoitra asked, does it mean the power that breaks the mask? Toyoro. Resurrection, Arrancar transformed and has a unique sword liberation. There is a fundamental difference between the liberation of the Arrancar Zanpakuto and the liberation of the Shinigami Zanpakuto. Tojo then explained. Arrancar's return to the blade is to seal his hollow core into the shape of a sword. Liberation is a return of the virtual ability. Returning to the blade redirects Arrancar's virtual ability. In essence, it is the Shinigami transformation of the virtual. An evolution that breaks through the boundaries of one's own soul. Just like the original work, after Arrancarization, Nnoitra became a tall, thin man with a single eye patch and medium-long black hair parted in the middle. The location of the virtual hole is very special. Unlike other virtual holes, which are generally located from the chest to the abdomen, it is located on the head near the left eye. While he appears as a Zanpakuto in the form of a giant scythe, or weapon-like weapon bearing two crescent-shaped moon blades with a chain attached to the hilt at his waist. Or in the dark, Nnoitra was feeling the changes in his spiritual pressure and soul. He truly realized that his soul was greatly strengthened, and he willingly gave it to the Lord of Sword City who gave him strength. Then he knelt on one knee and expressed his loyalty to Tojo Ayaya. Advertisement. Daocheng smiled with satisfaction. So far, he has conquered 5 Daxu, and the Espada in the original work has conquered 3. Next, he will solve the current King of Hueco Mundo, Baraggan, and become the true King of Hueco Mundo. After walking out of the cave, Toshiro Ayaya immediately said, "You are the most powerful Daxu with the most powerful killing ability that I have encountered so far. In the future, I will carefully select the 10 most powerful Daxu from the entire Hueco Mundo as my subordinates. Espada Legion. Right now, because the 10 members have not been collected yet, the order is tentatively decided. But if you have something to do in the future, I will leave it to Harribel to make the decision." Harribel is the first Daxu to follow Knife City and has been operating with Knife City for more than 100 years now, not to mention that she is still the only Vastod. Mira Rhodes and Sun, who had been following Harribel, were also overjoyed to see Harribel being so valued by Sword City. However, when Nnoitra heard Daocheng say that he was looking for Harribel, a feeling of dissatisfaction suddenly arose in his heart. Such a powerful self actually ranks behind a woman in Daocheng's heart. "Lord Daocheng, is there any?" Nnoitra immediately jumped out to express doubts. Nnoitra, what do you have to say?" Daocheng glanced sideways at Nnoitra. Before Nnoitra finished speaking, a huge sense of oppression suddenly fell on Nnoitra. Oops, this sense of oppression. Still such fear from the soul. Nnoitra now clearly knows that this is Lord Daocheng's punishment for him. But he didn't expect that even though he had been transformed into Arrancar and his soul had been improved, Nnoitra would still be vulnerable to the Sword City. He originally thought that even if he was still far inferior to Ayaya Tojo after being transformed into Arrancar, he would not be as embarrassed as before. It turns out that my idea was still too naive. Harribel and Zommari looked at Tojo Ayaya. Although they did not suffer any impact, they still felt the oppression in the air at this moment. After Zommari saw it, he couldn't help praising Toshiro Ayaya loudly. "Toshiro-sama, you can definitely become the real King of Hueco Mundo. Long live Toshiro-sama, long live Toshiro-sama." At this time, Harribel, like Zommari, had an attitude of worship and loyalty towards Knife City. But the pressure came and went away just as quickly. Nnoitra suddenly felt relieved, and then she lay on the ground and took a long breath, feeling scared. Nnoitra is very sure that if he dares to be disrespectful to Daocheng or if he dares to raise objections to Daocheng, he will never end it as easily as today. After a brief demonstration, Daocheng asked Zommari, "I asked you to explore Zai Palace, what did you find?" Zommari knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, "Lord Daocheng, I have completely found out the location of Zai Palace. As for what actions Zai Palace has taken, that is Baraggan sending him crazily. The subordinates want to find out the identity of the spiritual pressure that suddenly broke out a few days ago, that is, Baraggan wants to investigate you, Master Daocheng." Daocheng smiled and said, "It seems that this Baraggan has some courage. Does he want to take the initiative to find out about me? Then I must visit Zai Palace as soon as possible." Chapter 24 Finally meeting the King of Hueco Mundo. The Game of Baraggan. Dang, dang, dang. A broken yellow bell hangs on a towering pillar, and a long bell stick hangs below the bell and floats in the wind. Baraggan wore a crown on his head and gold bracelets on his hands. He sat on the throne, holding his chin with his right hand and making a dissatisfied sound. Behind him, a female-made Daxu came out with a bottle of wine. When she walked to the edge of Baraggan, she wanted to fill up the wine glass on one side for him. When Baraggan saw it, he waved his hands in disgust and said, "No need." Baraggan said, "It's really boring. As an army, nothing shows the lack of meaning of existence more than the lack of enemies. Don't you feel this way?" All the Akukas under the throne looked at each other, and no one answered. Baraggan laughed at himself. "Even if I ask this, you won't have any answer other than yes." Baraggan put his hands on the throne and leaned back. "I am completely exhausted now." The troops did not report any news about the spiritual pressure that appeared before. Brush, brush, brush. Suddenly there was the sound of swords outside, and then the painful cry of Daxu outside was heard. One Yachukas shouted anxiously, "What happened?" Suddenly, several figures appeared directly in front of Baraggan, a strange combination of 3 Arrancar and a Shinigami. 3 people who looked like Daxu gathered behind a Shinigami, seemingly dominated by him. A giant like Akukas with long red hair shouted, "Who are you?" Then he stepped forward and waved his huge right hand towards Sword City Ayaya. Tojo Ayaya Yoruichi was motionless, but Zommari on the other side took the lead and pulled out his Zanpakuto and instantly cut the red-haired giant Daxu in half. The Akukas below the throne shouted in unison, "This is unforgivable. Everyone, come on together." Baraggan on the throne became interested at this time, stood up from the chair and said, "Wait. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote." Yachukas looked at Baraggan in confusion, not sure why he made such a decision. Baraggan said, "It comes at the right time to kill the boring time. I will be your opponent." Toshiro took a step forward and said, "This is the first time we meet. My name is Toshiro Ayaya. I'm just a Shinigami. You should be Baraggan, the king of Hueco Mundo, right?" Baraggan replied proudly, "That's me. Who are you guys? I think the few around you are Shu, they seem to still have some masks." Baraggan said, "Huh, no matter what comes, it's the same. I'm just bored today. If you didn't show up today, I would still be thinking about leading my army to conquer other places in Hueco Mundo." Baraggan said to the Daochung group, "Anyway, I still want to say, welcome, to you. Welcome to my castle, Zai Palace." Zommari was already angry when he saw that Baraggan showed no respect to Sword City. He laughed at Baraggan and said, "It's so funny. Can a place without roofs and walls be called a castle? There is no need for a roof at all. For me as the king, this entire Hueco Mundo sky is the roof of my castle." Baraggan said. Zommari was immediately amused by Baraggan's answer and said, unexpectedly, "The king of Hueco Mundo also loves to joke." Daochung interrupted Zommari and said, "Zommari, there is no point in talking too fast." Advertisement. After Zommari heard Toshiro's statement, he immediately said, "Yes, Lord Tojo." Then, he respectfully retreated behind Tojo, but he was still very unhappy with this arrogant king of Hueco Mundo. Daochung took a few steps forward and said, "King of Hueco Mundo, I want to ask you a question." Baraggan repeated in confusion, "A question?" Tojo Ayaya asked calmly, "Yes, a question. Are you satisfied with yourself now?" "What?" Daochung continued. "Do you realize that the current world is different from the original appearance? Don't you want to see the real world clearly? I will help you. Surrender to me. In this case, I will give it to you. See the power of this world. The power of seeing the world clearly." Baraggan said. Daochung explained to Baraggan, "Yes, my research has basically been completed, turning the virtual Shinigami into a virtual one. Borrowing foreign objects to break the boundaries between two completely opposite objects and elevate the realm of the soul to a new level. Realm. And you are about to see the world clearly." After Daochung finished speaking, he quietly watched Baraggan's reaction. Ha, 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 Baraggan laughed instantly after hearing this, the power of seeing the world clearly. A new realm. It's ridiculous, you ain't like Shinigami. Baraggan suddenly changed his tone and said with murderous intent, "I am the king of Hueco Mundo, the king of the world. There is no existence beyond me. Except for the world I created, there is no existence at all. I can't see clearly. World." Toshiro curled up his lips and said with a smile, "Really? Is it you who created Hueco Mundo? Is it you who split the three realms? So I say you can't see this world clearly at all." Baraggan commanded his subordinate Daxu and said, "Go kill them and completely defeat these arrogant ants." Ah, yi, hui, wang yi, Daxu all around made strange sounds and rushed towards Daochung and the four of them. Harribel, Nnoitra, and Zommari watched as the Daxu around them rushed toward them and attacked them crazily. They all drew out their Zanpakuto to fight against these Daxu. Baraggan pointed at Tojo Ayaya and said, "And your opponent is me. We don't have much time, so I can just treat you as a game. You should feel honored that you are about to be killed by the king of Hueco Mundo, ant." Toshiro looked at Baraggan's attire and said, "It's really ironic, king of Hueco Mundo. You are obviously a hollow, but the way you look like a skeleton and a skeleton holding a weapon is very similar to the appearance of Shinigami imagined by humans." Quote. Baraggan jumped down with a weapon in hand and slashed at Tojo Ayaya head on, saying, "Nonsense. Brush." Daochung put his hands in his pockets and dodged Baraggan's attack calmly. "Ant, can you only run away?" Baraggan held a huge double-edged axe and continued to pursue Ayaya Tojo. Hado number 31, Red Fire Cannon. Toshiro Ayaya omitted the chant and threw a fireball seemingly casually from her fingers. Baraggan was not afraid, holding a giant axe and facing the red artillery of Sword City. "Does this kind of thing want to defeat me? Ant." Boom. The moment the giant axe of Baraggan hit the red cannon, a huge force burst out, as if the blazing flames were carrying a huge force and hit the double-edged axe head-on. Baraggan's double-edged axe couldn't withstand a blow at all. With a dang sound, he was half broken by the red fire cannon. At the same time, Baraggan couldn't control the power with the double-edged axe in his hand. His half-broken hands, the bladed axe was directly shot away by the red artillery. Baraggan no longer looked as calm as before. His body was hit by the red cannon. Half of his original purple costume was burned, and his right hand became tattered. Toshiro fell slowly and praised, "You are indeed the king of Hueco Mundo. Can I only say that my Kidō can only hurt you to this extent?" Baraggan was directly stimulated by Daochung's words. Baraggan suddenly burst into flames. Baraggan said, "You just hurt me, so don't get carried away." A purple-black substance suddenly rose from Baraggan's body into the sky, seeming to annihilate everything around him. Death Sigh. Chapter 25 Death Sigh. The vast and invincible spiritual pressure wall. Baraggan was angered by Daochung's attitude and immediately unleashed his strongest ability, Death Sigh. Death Sigh Respira. It is the strongest attack of Baraggan in the original work. When launched, a barrier-like large-scale attack will occur. All people or objects in contact will quickly decay and collapse. It is an extremely terrifying move. And it spread extremely fast. Even Sui Feng, who was famous for his speed, was caught up by the spread of Death's Sigh and was forced to cut off an arm. This purple-black smoke spread towards Tojo Ayaya at an extremely fast speed in an instant. Baraggan believed that all his spiritual pressure must have exploded at this time, trying to kill Tojo directly with this move. Harribel looked at the place where this strange purple-black mist passed. Whether it was rocks or quartz trees, they were instantly eroded by the purple-black smoke, and then gradually corroded into fine dust. This purple-black smoke has the power to corrupt everything. When Harribel saw that the mist was about to reach Toshiro Ayaya, she shouted in horror, "What kind of ability is that? Master Toshiro, it's dangerous." Zommari and Nnoitra on the other side were extremely horrified when they saw Baraggan decaying everything into fine dust. Toshiro Ayaya looked at the smoke that was about to devour him, and directly chose to activate Kidō to block Bakudo number 81 breaking the sky. A giant wall of air appeared in front of the Sword City, which seemed to separate the Death Sigh and Sword City Ayaya into two worlds. Baraggan looked at Daochung's movements and laughed. "Ha ha ha, what is this? Kidō, nothing can stop the spread of the Sigh of Death." Baraggan said arrogantly, "What do you think is the most powerful force in the world? Let me tell you the answer. It's time. No one can escape the control of aging. Do you think you can stop the Sigh of Death with a Kidō?" After the Death Sigh came into contact with the air wall, it took a while for cracks to slowly appear in the air. The purple-black color of the Death Sigh began to invade. With the intrusion of the Death Sigh, the cracks in the air became wider and wider, and then the air wall collapsed. Daochung stood on the other side of Duan Kong and watched the erosion process of Death Sigh, appearing to be very interested in it. The moment before the Sigh of Death broke through the sky, swipe, Daochung used Shunko to distance himself, and stood high in the sky looking at Baraggan. Daochung asked, "King of Hueco Mundo, your attack has made your already dilapidated Zai Palace even more dilapidated, and you are still here using your abilities carelessly." Baraggan laughed loudly. "Do you think I care about this? My castle is not just Zai Palace. It is the entire Hueco Mundo. It's so nerve-wracking." Daochung flashed away, but he didn't see any distress at all. Through his test just now, Daochung already understood the operation of Death Sigh and the way to restrain it. Wei. Tojo showed a smile. In the original work, Baraggan's ability cannot be said to absolutely corrode everything. In the original work, Akita Hakogen's multiple Kidō barriers successfully isolated the Sigh of Death. In the original work, Eisen relied on Kyoka Suigetsu to conquer Baraggan, but at this time Tojo Ayaya lost his Zanpakuto. There is no way to subdue Baraggan directly through complete hypnosis like Eisen did. In Shinigami's later patch novels, the Death Sigh, also known as Baraggan, can be completely suppressed by spiritual pressure. There is also an example in it, just like after the liberation of the Bloody Battle chapter, Kenpachi can rely on spiritual pressure to shake the Death Sigh out of thin air. Advertisement. At this time, Tojo Ayaya's spiritual pressure has been rewarded through system sign-ins over the years. There is no doubt that the spiritual pressure has become more powerful than the Bloody Battle of Liberation Kenpachi. In other words, as long as the spiritual pressure is strong enough, even time cannot erase it. That is the biggest nemesis of Death Sigh. The next moment, vast spiritual pressure spurted out from Tojo Ayaya's body, and the boundless spiritual pressure blocked the purple-black Death Sigh. In an instant, the sky and earth in Hueco Mundo changed color, and the space trembled. Why can this kind of thing be done? It can actually stop my Death Sigh. My decaying ability, which even the Great Hollow that devoured everything thousands of years ago was afraid of, was actually blocked by this Shinigami's simple spiritual pressure. At this moment, Baraggan simply couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes. If Toshiro had avoided his Death Sigh, or used Kidō to block it like he did just now, Baraggan wouldn't be so out of control. But the problem is, Daochung blocked the invasion of death with just his spiritual pressure. And Baraggan recognized this spiritual pressure and said, Before, the spiritual pressure that shook Hueco Mundo was you, right? Baraggan was stunned. This spiritual pressure that frightened him for days and nights came from the humble Shinigami in front of him. Daochung smiled and said, "Yes, but that time was just a test. I'm really sorry to disturb you." Toshiro Ayaya's next move directly shattered Baraggan's three views. Toshiro took a step forward. Baraggan is confident that he is the king of the world, and that his aging ability is the ability of time, an ability that can only be possessed by a true god. It is this ability that makes him so invincible that he disregards the sun, the stars, and everything else in the world. Let everything that was contaminated quickly decay and age, leaving only dust on the ground. With this ability, he has been unrivaled in Hueco Mundo for thousands of years, and has become the king of Hueco Mundo along the way. And this aging ability, which he always thought was a god, was easily resolved by a Shinigami using spiritual pressure. Baraggan was stunned and thought to himself, could this be the real world that I have never seen clearly? The spiritual pressure released by the Sword City is endless. Even after aging erodes the spiritual pressure, the subsequent spiritual pressure will also make up for it. That is to say, Sword City's spiritual pressure forcibly tore a hole in the aging power. As Sword City moved forward, the spiritual pressure continued to open a way forward. He even directly used spiritual pressure to create a road that leads directly in front of Baraggan. This road directly squeezes the aging power to both sides. This is a road that belongs to the new king. Just like this, under Baraggan's disbelieving eyes, Toshiro Ayaya walked up to Baraggan. So, can I show you the power of New World now? King of Hueco Mundo. Daocheng exuded the aura of a king and asked Baraggan condescendingly.